Chapter 195. Junior Brother Ji, bring it on. Yin Feiyang sneered disdainfully. He stood calmly in the field without any intention of drawing his sword. He said that he would let Ji Tianqing make 2 moves, so he would only block and dodge. He would not take the initiative to attack. Take this. Ji Tianqing shouted in a low voice. A cold light flashed in his eyes. At the same time, he used the shadowless step. His feet moved in a mysterious way, and he rushed toward Yin Feiyang as fast as lightning. He was so fast that he left a few afterimages behind him. In a flash, he rushed 10 meters away and arrived in front of Yin Feiyang. He pulled out the black dragon sword and slashed with all his strength. Dragon soars from the 9th heaven. When the black dragon sword was unsheathed, it shone with a dazzling cold light. It was as if a thunderbolt had torn the night apart. When Ji Tianqing poured his majestic true essence into the black dragon sword, it immediately turned into a huge 3-meter-long sword light. The sword light burst out with a power that could split heaven and earth. It fell from the sky and slashed toward Yin Feiyang. The dazzling sword light condensed into a 9-meter-long black dragon shadow. It emitted a bone-chilling cold. The entire dragon viewing platform was shocked by the power of this sword and trembled slightly. With Ji Tianqing as the center, the air within a radius of 20 meters was squeezed out, making crackling sounds. The power of this sword was so terrifying that the disciples of the 2 sects were shocked and exclaimed in disbelief. Before the black dragon sword hit Yin Feiyang, he was suppressed by the terrifying sword intent. He could not move an inch. His eyes were full of horror and despair. He instantly forgot what he had just said and subconsciously held the hilt of his sword. He wanted to pull it out and fight back. However, it was too late. Bang! In a deafening sound, the 3-meter-long sword light and the 9-meter-long black dragon shadow drowned Yin Feiyang on the spot. The huge sword light slashed the dragon viewing platform and cut a huge gully in the ground. Countless gravel splashed out. The entire dragon viewing platform trembled violently as if there was a big earthquake. Such astonishing destructive power caused everyone to reveal expressions of disbelief. The people of the Tianjin sect were even more worried. They stared at the chaotic scene in the field, guessing what would happen to Yin Feiyang. After a full 10 breaths of time, the true essence brilliance and the black dragon phantom dissipated, and the dust and gravel that filled the air also settled down. Only then did everyone see the situation clearly. Ji Tianqing held the black dragon sword in his hand and stood proudly in the middle of the field, exuding a confident and calm aura. On the stone floor in front of him, there was a huge crack about half a meter wide and 5 meters long. Yin Feiyang was lying at the side of the rift. His body was trembling, his face was covered in blood, and his hair was disheveled. He was in an extremely sorry state. He was obviously heavily injured, and he struggled with all his might to get up, but he was unable to do so. Ji Tian Xing, you deserve to die. This is impossible. Yin Feiyang raised his head with great difficulty. He raised his blood-stained face and glared at Ji Tianqing with bloodshot eyes. His voice was hoarse, and his words were intermittent. When he opened his mouth to speak, blood kept flowing out of the corners of his mouth. Obviously, his injuries were not only external, but also his internal organs. Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly and said indifferently, "Senior Brother Yin, you clearly said that you would let me make 2 moves first, so that I wouldn't even have a chance to draw my sword. This is only the first move. Please keep your word and take my second move." As he spoke, he raised the black dragon sword again. His fighting spirit soared, and he was about to use his second move. Yin Feiyang was suddenly filled with fear, and he felt extremely indignant and humiliated. Just a moment ago, he had been full of pride and disdain for Ji Tianqing, and he had said arrogant words in front of everyone. But now, he had been seriously injured by Ji Tianqing's sword. He didn't even have a chance to draw his sword and counterattack. He had almost died on the spot. How ironic and ridiculous this was. With his current heavily injured body, how could he possibly withstand Ji Tianxing's second attack? Wasn't it obvious that he wanted to kill him? In his grief and indignation, Yin Feiyang actually opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Ji Tianxing turned a blind eye to this. He raised the black dragon sword and looked like he was about to slash down. At the critical moment, Manager Qi of the Tianjian sect quickly jumped out and rushed to Yin Feiyang's side. He glared at Ji Tianxing and shouted in a deep voice, "Ji Tianxing, what are you doing? Are you going to kill someone in front of everyone?" Ji Tianxing looked at him indifferently and deliberately mocked him. Yin Feiyang said that he would let me make 2 moves first. What, Manager Qi, are you going to interfere with the competition? Or, Manager Qi, are you going to help Yin Feiyang renege on his debt and be a villain who goes back on his word? Manager Qi's face turned ashen with anger, and his eyes were filled with cold light. However, the deacons and elders of both sects were present, so he could only endure and not flare up. He gnashed his teeth and shouted coldly, "We admit defeat in this round." Only then did Ji Tianxing put away his black dragon sword. He glanced at Deacon Qi with a mocking gaze and said disdainfully, "Wouldn't it have been better if you had admitted defeat earlier? Why wait until you've been beaten to a pulp before surrendering? You!" Manager Qi was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. If it were another occasion, he would definitely kill Ji Tianxing. However, on the dragon viewing platform, under the watchful eyes of everyone, no matter how much Ji Tianxing humiliated him and Yin Feiyang, he could only endure it. Soon, Manager Qi supported the heavily injured Yin Feiyang and left the stage dejectedly. The faces of the Tianjian sect's people darkened. They glared at Ji Tianxing with hatred and gnashed their teeth. The disciples of the Sky Pillar sect were filled with shock. They revealed excited smiles and shouted while waving their fists. "Great! We've won! Ji Tianxing, well done! As expected of the influential figure of our sect. That sword move was too gorgeous and terrifying. Ha ha ha! Clowns of the Tianjian sect, why don't you continue to be arrogant?" The first elder, Chu Huaishan, Han Qiushen, and the others obviously did not expect this result. They all revealed gratified smiles. "Not bad, not bad. Huh, what a good move, dragon soars from the 9th heaven. It really has the momentum of a dragon soaring through the 9th heaven. I didn't misjudge him. This battle alone is enough to make him famous in the ancient realm of the stars. This kid is only at the first stage of the profound comprehending realm, but he can display such terrifying combat strength. It's really incredible. Previously, I thought that the Tianjian sect had no chance of winning with Hang Chen, who was at the 5th stage of the profound comprehending realm. Now it seems that Ji Tianxing may be able to create a miracle." Ji Tianxing listened to the discussions and praises of the crowd, but he was not arrogant or complacent. His expression was still calm and composed. Although he could defeat Yin Feiyang with his own strength without using the black dragon sword, he would not be able to achieve such a shocking effect. The little black dragon had lived in the Grand Peace Palace for a month and eaten many spiritual fruits. It had recovered 20% of its strength, which made the black dragon sword so powerful. It was also because of this that Ji Tianxing had not chosen a weapon and had only chosen a set of soft armor. How could the profound grade treasured swords in the outer sect's treasury compare to the black dragon sword's power? Chapter 196. On the dragon viewing platform, the crowd discussed for a long time. The people of the Tianjian sect were filled with anger and resentment. They glared at Ji Tianxing with murderous intent. The people of the Sky Pillar sect were jubilant. They were proud of Ji Tianxing's easy victory. After a while, Chu Huaishan announced the result of the fight. The Sky Pillar sect wins the second round. Next, both parties, please prepare for the third battle. The third battle was not only the final battle, but also the crucial battle that would determine the outcome of the competition. At the same time, it was also a battle between the strongest outer sect disciples of the two sects. Ji Tianqing was still standing in the field, waiting for the third round. Among the people of the Tianjian sect, Heng Chen walked out with the heavy sword of the setting sun on his back. He looked cold and murderous. Previously, he had disdained Ji Tianqing and didn't put him in his eyes at all. However, after witnessing Ji Tianqing's sword, he no longer underestimated Ji Tianqing and began to view him as a mortal enemy. Bang, 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 Heng Chen walked to the center of the field, neither too fast nor too slow. His heavy footsteps made muffled sounds. He stopped 10 meters away from Ji Tianqing. He stared at Ji Tianqing maliciously and spoke. "Junior brother Ji, I didn't expect you to hide your strength so well. To be able to use such amazing swordsmanship. However, no matter how powerful your swordsmanship is, you're only at LV1 of the Tongxian realm. You're no match for me. Since you've met me, you're destined to lose miserably. I'll give you a chance. It's not too late to admit defeat. Otherwise, don't blame my heavy sword of the setting sun for being merciless." Heng Chen's tone was firm, and his eyes were full of confidence. As a martial arts genius, he naturally had the confidence and pride to match. Even though Ji Tianqing had just displayed amazing combat strength, he had only stopped looking down on him and treated him seriously. He was certain that the final result would not change. The victory would belong to him. ALV1 of the Tongxian realm martial artist wanted to defeat a LV5 of the Tongxian realm expert. This was simply the ravings of a lunatic, an absurd delusion. Ji Tianqing looked at Heng Chen calmly and said in an indifferent tone, "I always believe that everything depends on human effort. Nothing is predestined, and nothing is impossible. Heng Chen, I will definitely win this battle, and Long Shan will definitely return to our sect." Heng Chen was very arrogant. Ji Tianqing was also very confident. His tone was also resolute and unquestionable. Hearing his words, Heng Chen immediately frowned. He reached for the heavy sword of the setting sun on his back and grinned coldly. "Junior brother Ji, since you're so confident, it seems that you've already made preparations. If that's the case, then put on the armor you've carefully prepared. Let's see if I can chop you into pieces." Heng Chen gripped the heavy sword of the setting sun with both hands as his entire body emitted a bloody killing intent. His skin became even redder, and his expression became even more ferocious. The blood in his body surged violently, emitting the sound of wind and thunder. It was obvious that he was accumulating terrifying power. There was no doubt that he had stimulated the potential of the battle sword bloodline. He had also begun to go berserk, and his combat strength was rapidly increasing. Seeing this scene, the people of the Tianjian sect secretly clenched their fists, looking forward to the scene of Heng Chen tyrannizing Ji Tianqing. A few disciples also shouted excitedly, cheering for Heng Chen. "Heng Chen, release your killing intent. Let the trash of the Sky Pillar sect experience the power of the battle sword bloodline. Heng Chen will win. Our sect will win." When the people of the Sky Pillar sect saw the changes in Heng Chen's body and aura, their expressions became grave. A few disciples widened their eyes and stared at Heng Chen, their faces filled with worry. Han Qiusheng, Chu Huaishan, and the others also frowned, their hearts filled with worry. In their opinion, Heng Chen's strength was already at the 5th level of the Mystic and Lightning realm. Now that he had used the power of the battle sword bloodline, his combat strength was close to the 6th level of the Mystic and Lightning realm. No matter how monstrous Ji Tianqing was, it was impossible for him to surpass 5 levels and defeat Heng Chen. It was no longer a miracle, it was a complete fantasy. At the same time, Heng Chen's aura reached its peak, and his body was surrounded by a layer of light red killing intent. His eyes also turned dark red as he stared at Ji Tianqing and shouted angrily, "Ji Tianqing, die. Battle blood manic sword. Cloud crushing slash." Hang Chen held the sword of the setting sun with both hands, his whole body emitting blood-red killing intent. He rushed toward Ji Tianqing like a flood, brandishing the sword and slashing out two blood-red sword rays. Swoosh! Swoosh! The 2-meter-long sword rays were as wide as half a table. They were blood-red in color and emitted a strong bloody aura. They were extremely violent. The two sword rays slashed toward Ji Tianqing from the left and right at an incredible speed, leaving afterimages of the sword rays in the sky. Seeing this scene, the disciples of the Tianjian sect were all excited and exclaimed excitedly. It's the battle blood manic sword. Hang Chen is actually using his secret sword technique. Hang Chen didn't use the 7-killing swordsmanship, but directly used his secret sword technique. It seems that he wants to end the battle in a few moves. I bet that Ji Tianqing won't be able to last more than 3 moves under Hang Chen's sword. Hahaha, Ji Tianqing must have been shocked by Hang Chen's killing intent. He must have been scared silly. When the disciples of the Tianjian sect saw Ji Tianqing standing in the field expressionlessly, they all thought that he had been scared silly. Then, an even more unbelievable scene occurred. Facing Hang Chen's fierce attack, Ji Tianqing didn't wave his sword to block it. Instead, he put away the black dragon sword. He was facing Hang Chen's attack with his bare hands. Seeing this, the people of the Sky Pillar sect were all surprised and disgusted with puzzlement. What is Ji Tianqing doing? Is he going to fight Hang Chen with his bare hands? Isn't this too ridiculous? Not to mention that he's only at the 1st level of the Mystic Comprehending Realm. Even if he's also at the 5th level of the Mystic Comprehending Realm, it's impossible for him to block Hang Chen. Ji Tianqing was able to defeat Yin Feiyang with one move. In addition to his own strength, his sword is also very powerful. It's obviously not an ordinary sword. Yeah. I really don't know what he's thinking. He actually abandoned his divine weapon and wants to face the enemy with his bare hands. When the disciples of the Tianjian sect saw Ji Tianqing put away his sword, they were all stunned for a moment. Obviously, they hadn't expected this. Then, several disciples came back to their senses and revealed expressions of contempt and disdain as they laughed unscrupulously. Haha, is this guy's brain flooded with water? He's going to face Hang Chen with his bare hands. This isn't confidence. It's completely throwing an egg against a stone. He's courting death. It's also possible that Ji Tianqing knows that he's no match for Hang Chen and will definitely lose, so he simply gave up resisting. When I saw him defeat Yin Feiyang with one move, I thought he had some ability and would be able to withstand a few moves from Hang Chen. Now it seems that the outcome has been decided. Longshan still belongs to our Tianjian sect. Chapter 197. In fact, Hang Chen's attack couldn't threaten Ji Tianqing at all, so he didn't need to dodge. When the 2 blood-red sword radiances were about to hit Ji Tianqing, he finally counterattacked. He activated the power of the sword embryo in his body and instantly released 8 golden sword radiances. They circled around him rapidly and formed a sword net. Swish! 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 The sword radiances flew back and forth like shooting stars, making sharp sounds and bursting with sharp sword chi. The 2 blood-red sword radiances were blocked by the sword net and shattered on the spot. Hang Chen was stunned when he saw this. His eyes were filled with surprise and confusion. The disciples of the 2 sects were also stunned. They didn't expect Ji Tianqing to be able to perform such an exquisite sword technique without using a sword. In the next moment, the 8 golden sword radiances split into 16 sword radiances under Ji Tianqing's control and stabbed toward Hang Chen. The 16 sword radiances attacked in unison and arranged themselves into a fan-shaped sword formation, bursting with sharp sword chi. With Hang Chen as the center, the sword radiances covered an area of 10 meters. The sword chi was everywhere. Hang Chen immediately came to his senses and hurriedly waved the crescent sun sword. He performed the sword technique of the blazing blood sword and slashed out several sword radiances to attack the golden sword formation. The blood-red sword radiances and the golden sword radiances collided, producing muffled bangs and bursting with violent chi that formed gusts of wind. The sword formation formed by the 16 sword radiances was swayed by Hang Chen's violent attacks, and the sword radiances danced wildly. However, Ji Tianqing calmly performed the sword technique and split the 16 sword radiances into 32 sword radiances. Swish! Swish! The 32 sword radiances surrounded Hang Chen and covered an area of 10 meters. They kept attacking and stabbing. This area became the domain of the sword radiances. The raging chi and sword radiances seemed to be tearing the sky apart. Hang Chen was surrounded by so many sword radiances that his body was completely covered by them. He desperately waved his heavy sword, trying to block and break the sword radiances around him. However, the 32 sword lights were as swift as lightning, and their order and trajectory contained some sort of special law that was difficult to fathom. He furiously brandished his sword and madly attacked dozens of times, but he still couldn't break through the encirclement of the sword rays that filled the sky. It was to the extent that he was trapped on the spot, unable to move at all. He had been circling in a radius of 5 steps. Seeing this scene, the people of the two sects revealed expressions of surprise and astonishment, and began to discuss one after another. What kind of move is this? Ji Tianqing can actually display such exquisite swordsmanship. No wonder he didn't use a treasured sword to face the enemy. It turns out that he had grasped such an unimaginable sword technique. It's really too gorgeous, too shocking. Does anyone feel that there seems to be a special pattern to the attack routes and sequences of the golden sword auras, like the power of an array? It can't be. Could it be that Ji Tianqing had combined array and swordsmanship? Isn't this too unbelievable? Hang Chen is attacking left and right, but he can't break through the sword light's encirclement. It looks like there's something strange about those sword lights. Everyone was discussing with surprise and shock. The people of the Sky Pillar sect were all amazed and secretly cheered for Ji Tianqing. The disciples of the Tianjian sect were also awed by Ji Tianqing's exquisite swordsmanship. They put away their contempt and didn't dare to mock him again. In the field, the golden sword auras that filled the sky still surrounded Hang Chen, forcing him into a fluster. Bang! 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 The muffled sounds were incessant, and the raging wind continued to sweep in all directions. Ji Tianqing controlled the sword array from 10 meters away and continued to attack Hang Chen. Hang Chen desperately attacked in the sword array, but he couldn't break through the encirclement of the sword array. He couldn't even touch the corner of Ji Tianqing's clothes. His patience had finally run out, and the discussions of the people around him made him feel ashamed and angry. Ji Tianqing. You want to trap me with these insignificant skills? Don't even think about it. Hang Chen roared with a ferocious expression. His skin turned dark red like blood, and a blood-red murderous aura lingered around him. The dense murderous aura condensed into a red cloud. I'll let you see the power of my sword-fighting bloodline. Obviously, the furious Hang Chen no longer held back his strength and completely activated the power of his sword-fighting bloodline. At this moment, his combat strength was raised to the peak and was comparable to a LV6 Tongxian realm expert. Sky-splitting strike. Hang Chen roared and rushed toward Ji Tianqing with the sword of setting sun in both hands. He fiercely slashed out a blood-red sword light that could split heaven and earth. He completely ignored the sword lights around him and rushed out of the sword array's encirclement at the risk of injury. Bang! 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 Suddenly, a series of deafening muffled sounds burst out. Hang Chen broke through the encirclement of the sword lights with an overbearing attitude and extremely powerful destructive power and arrived in front of Ji Tianqing. However, he was also stabbed by many sword lights. Several deep sword wounds were left on his body, and dark red blood gushed out. Although he had broken through the sword array with absolute strength and domineering methods, he was also heavily injured. However, his body was also heavily injured, and his strength was weakened by 30%. When he rushed in front of Ji Tianqing was already prepared and had already used the shadowless step to retreat. Ji Tianqing! Give me your life! Hang Chen roared furiously. He waved the sword of setting sun and pounced on Su Mo, launching a frenzied attack. Ji Tianqing did not meet him head-on at all. He dodged and evaded the attacks while controlling the sword lights to tangle with Hang Chen. The people from the two sects watched the battle closely, their faces full of worry. The people from the Tianjian sect originally thought that with Hang Chen's strength, he could defeat Ji Tianqing in 3 to 5 moves. However, they did not expect that a full 15 minutes had passed, and the outcome of this battle was still undecided. Everyone found this hard to believe, and they couldn't accept it. On the other side, the people from the Sky Pillar sect were also shocked and found it unbelievable. Before today, no one believed that Ji Tianqing, who was in the first stage of the Profound Enlightening Realm, could match Hang Chen, who was in the 5th stage of the Profound Enlightening Realm. But now, Ji Tianqing had done it. Even if he had not defeated Hang Chen, the fact that he could fight evenly with Hang Chen was already a miracle. The disciples of the Tempest Hall were all staring at Ji Tianqing with admiration. They were dazzled and intoxicated as they watched the battle. The First Elder and Chu Huaishan were also silently watching Ji Tianqing. Both of them were experts at the peak of the Origin Core stage. Of course, they could see Ji Tianqing's methods and intentions. The two of them stood at the edge of the dragon viewing platform and were talking through their spiritual senses. The First Elder praised from the bottom of his heart, Elder Chu, this Ji Tianqing is not simple. He knows that he is not as strong as Hang Chen, so he won't fight him head-on. He knows how to make use of his advantages. This kid is proficient in formations. He actually combined formations with swordsmanship to display an exquisite sword formation. In order to break the sword formation, Hang Chen could only use brute force to break it. As a result, he was seriously injured and his strength was weakened by 30%. Chu Huaishan also nodded and said, yes, Ji Tianqing's attainments in formations are not bad. Knowing that Hang Chen's talent in formations is not good, he used a sword formation to deal with Hang Chen. This is using his strength to attack Hang Chen's weakness. This kid can still be so calm and composed in a fierce battle. He knows how to play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. He first weakened Hang Chen's strength. He is really calm and wise. The First Elder smiled and said with a gratified face, originally, with Ji Tianqing's strength in the first stage of the Profound Enlightening Realm, I did not have high hopes of winning against Hang Chen, who is in the 5th stage of the Profound Enlightening Realm. I did not expect that although Ji Tianqing is weaker than Hang Chen, he is brave and resourceful. He knows how to gradually weaken Hang Chen's strength. Although Hang Chen's strength is not bad, he is a brute. Now that he only has 70% of his strength left, Ji Tianqing has a chance of winning. At present, it seems that Ji Tianqing is likely to defeat Hang Chen today and create a miracle. Chapter 198. Just as the crowd was discussing, there was a change in the battle situation. Within 100 breaths, Hang Chen chased after Ji Tianqing and attacked him crazily. He had already made more than 100 moves. He relied on the strength of a LV5 Tongxian realm martial artist, the violent power of the fighting sword bloodline, and the power of the blazing sun sword to fight Ji Tianqing at close range. Ji Tianqing was not as strong as Hang Chen, and he was unarmed. Of course, he could not fight Hang Chen at close range, let alone face him head-on. He used the shadowless steps to dodge and controlled the sword radiance to block and counterattack. However, he was only a LV1 Tongxian realm martial artist, so he was not Hang Chen's match. It was difficult for him to distance himself from Hang Chen. After exchanging more than 100 moves with Hang Chen, he also suffered serious injuries. There were several hideous wounds on his body, and blood was gushing out from them. However, he was wearing the black class High Golden Sun soft armor, so his injuries were not serious. By now, Ji Tianqing and Hang Chen had both used up a lot of genuine vitality. Both of them were covered in blood and their hair was disheveled. They looked a little embarrassed. Hang Chen originally thought that he could easily crush Ji Tianqing, but now that he had ferociously attacked over 100 times, he was still unable to defeat Ji Tianqing. His heart was filled with anger and anxiety, and he became more furious. He had the fighting sword bloodline and was a LV5 Tongxian realm martial artist. It was a disgrace that he was forced into such a state by Ji Tianqing, who was only a LV1 Tongxian realm martial artist. Hang Chen gradually lost his patience. He only wanted to defeat Ji Tianqing as soon as possible. However, he was eager to win. Although the power of his sword technique increased, he neglected his own defense and exposed many flaws. Ji Tianqing finally seized the opportunity and retreated 10 meters to distance himself from Hang Chen. Thousand Feather Blade. He shouted in a low voice and performed the Flying Star sword technique without hesitation. He activated the power of the sword embryo in his body and released 9 1-meter-long dark golden sword radiances that stabbed toward Hang Chen. Swish. 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 The 9 sword radiances enveloped Hang Chen and attacked him from different angles and directions. In the short span of a breath, the 9 sword beams had actually stabbed nearly 200 times. Hang Chen was enveloped by the sword shadows that filled the sky, and he immediately revealed a horrified expression. He swung the setting sun heavy sword with all his might, creating a sky full of blood-red sword light to block the sword light. Ding ding ding. Amidst the crisp sounds of collisions, the golden and blood-red sword beams continued to collide, bursting forth with a violent and raging strength chi. Even though Hang Chen tried his best to block it, his sword was too slow, and he couldn't block the lightning-fast sword light. In just 5 breaths of time, the 9 streaks of sword light had stabbed over 1,000 times before finally dissipating. On the other hand, Hang Chen had already become a bloody figure. His entire body was covered in over a dozen crisscrossing sword wounds, and dark red blood ceaselessly gushed out from them. The green robe he wore had long been shredded into pieces, turning into a pile of rags scattered on the dragon viewing platform. Fortunately, he was wearing a red soft armor that protected his vital parts, so he didn't embarrass himself in front of everyone. Even so, his blood-stained appearance made him look extremely miserable, causing the disciples of the 2 sects to cry out in alarm. After being seriously injured, Hang Chen's strength fell again, and he only had 40% of his combat strength left. At this moment, his strength was only equivalent to the 4th level of the mystic comprehending realm. Ah ah ah. The pain from the wounds all over his body and the anger that filled his heart made Hang Chen roar at the sky in rage. Ji Tianqing. You damned bastard. I'm going to tear you into pieces. Hang Chen roared as he charged at Ji Tianqing. He swung the setting sun heavy sword and slashed out over a dozen blood-red sword light that could split the sky and earth. Suddenly, an extremely dense bloody aura spread out, causing the entire dragon viewing platform to be covered in a bloody wind and rain. It was shrouded in a blood-red murderous aura. Ji Tianqing sneered when he saw that Hang Chen's strength had plummeted and that he was about to go crazy. After being ravaged by the sword formation and the 1,000-feather blade, Hang Chen was so furious that he had lost his mind. His combat strength was also very weak. This was the result of his meticulous plan. He wanted to weaken Hang Chen's combat strength step by step and finally defeat him completely. Gale Thunder Strike. When Hang Chen swung the setting sun heavy sword and charged at him, Ji Tianqing used the ultimate move of the Flying Star sword technique again. He released 2 huge sword lights with all his strength and attacked Hang Chen from both sides. The 2 golden sword lights were 2 meters long and shone with a dazzling golden light. They carried an extremely violent wind as they slashed at Hang Chen fiercely. At that moment, the golden sword lights mixed with the wind and struck Hang Chen like a huge golden lightning bolt. Kaboom! A thunderous explosion suddenly exploded on the dragon viewing platform, causing the entire dragon viewing platform to tremble violently. Hang Chen was sent flying on the spot. He fell 5 meters away covered in blood and rolled a few times on the ground before coming to a stop. Wherever he flew, dark red blood splattered on the ground. It was a ghastly sight under the sunlight. Everyone on the platform was shocked by the terrifying power of the Gale Thunderstrike. They stared at the arena with their eyes wide open with complicated expressions on their faces. They saw that the Gale Thunderstrike had blasted a huge pit on the marble floor. Dense cracks extended all around it. The disciples of the two sects were stunned. Their faces were filled with disbelief as they exclaimed in surprise. "Oh my God! Is this really the strength of a Tongxian realm martial artist? Ji Tianqing is actually able to use such a terrifying sword technique without using a treasured sword. Even a LV7 Tongxian expert wouldn't be able to wield a sword from afar and execute such a powerful sword technique. It's incredible. Hang Chen was beaten so badly by him. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it." Everyone was discussing, but Ji Tianqing turned a deaf ear to them. He was still calm as he stared at Hang Chen, who was 10 meters away. Hang Chen was covered in blood. He climbed up shakily from the ground. He held the setting sun heavy sword with both hands and wanted to charge at Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing frowned and said indifferently, "Hang Chen, you've lost. Give up struggling and admit defeat." His tone was cold and certain. It was not arrogant, but it contained great confidence. Hang Chen was instantly filled with humiliation. He glared at him with a ferocious face and roared furiously, "Impossible. I'll definitely defeat you. I'll never admit defeat." He had been accepted as a disciple by the Tianjian sect leader. He had the fighting sword bloodline and was at LV5 Tongxian realm. He was a martial arts genius who had been specially trained. How could he admit defeat to Ji Tianqing, who was at LV1 Tongxian realm? This was more humiliating than killing him. "Ah! Ji Tianqing! I'll kill you!" Hang Chen roared furiously. He activated the last power of the fighting sword bloodline and entered a state of madness. He charged at Ji Tianqing recklessly. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and said coldly, "Since you won't admit defeat, I'll have to beat you to the ground. It's also a good opportunity for you to see my real trump card." This is the 5th chapter of the day. There's a 6th chapter at 20 p.m. Chapter 199. The Flying Star Sword technique was Ji Tianqing's ultimate skill, but it was not his trump card. At this point, Hang Chen had already been heavily injured by him, and his strength was weak to the extreme. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Hang Chen's momentum was gone and he was powerless to reverse the situation. There was no doubt that he would lose this battle. However, Hang Chen gritted his teeth and endured his injuries. He was still fantasizing about a desperate counterattack. Since that was the case, Ji Tianqing could only use his trump card to completely defeat Hang Chen and make him accept his defeat wholeheartedly. He slowly raised his palms with his left palm facing down and his right palm facing up. He pressed his palms together and activated the sword embryo in his body with all his might. Buzz! Amid the buzzing sound, Ji Tianqing's palms lit up with a dazzling golden light. A small golden sword appeared. The small golden sword was only the size of a thumb, but it shone with a dazzling golden light. It emitted a soaring sword essence and a sharp sword chi that seemed to be able to tear the sky apart. There was no doubt that this was his sword embryo. Ever since he had reached the mystic comprehending realm, the sword embryo had turned from a shadow to a solid object. Such a huge change naturally caused his strength to increase by leaps and bounds. The sword embryo, which had condensed all of his skills in his life, naturally had unparalleled power. However, Ji Tianqing knew very well that although using the sword embryo in a battle had unparalleled destructive power, it was a method of harming oneself in order to kill 1,000 enemies. He would exhaust his true origin and be weak for half a month before he could recover. Therefore, he only used the sword embryo in his body at this crucial moment that determined the outcome of the battle. As he continued to circulate his qi, the golden sword embryo floating in his palms spun rapidly and became bigger and bigger. Buzz buzz. Buzz buzz. The sword embryo spun rapidly, emitting a soaring sword essence and emitting a series of buzzing sounds. After a few short breaths, Ji Tianqing opened his palms. His left and right palms were separated by more than a meter. At this moment, the sword embryo had become a dazzling golden sword that was more than a meter long. With him as the center, the area within a 30-meter radius was filled with extremely sharp sword qi, and the marble floor was cracked by the sword qi. Everyone on the dragon viewing platform was shocked. Their eyes were fixed on Ji Tianqing's sword embryo. The weaker disciples all thought that it was Ji Tianqing's sword aura. Only the deacons and elders of the two sects could see that it was not an ordinary sword ray, but a real divine sword that contained the power to destroy the heavens and earth. Hang Chen was also shocked. He stared at Ji Tianqing's sword embryo with wide eyes, fear and terror surging in his eyes. He was also a sword Dao genius, so he could feel how terrifying the power of the golden sword embryo was. Finally, Ji Tianqing pushed the power of the sword embryo to the limit. He stared at Hang Chen and shouted coldly. Hang Chen. Time to end this. As soon as he finished speaking, he controlled the sword embryo with both hands and attacked Hang Chen from 10 meters away. The dazzling golden sword embryo immediately transformed into a 3-meter-long golden giant sword, releasing a torrential golden flame. The dazzling golden flame was like a pair of wings on the sword embryo, pushing the speed and power of the sword embryo to the limit. The entire dragon viewing platform was enveloped by the golden light and became dazzling. The sword will that burst forth from the sword embryo carved out numerous cracks and ravines on the ground of the dragon viewing platform. Hang Chen was enveloped by the terrifying sword essence. His eyes were full of fear and his legs were weak. Looking at the incoming giant sword, he could only use all his strength to raise the heavy sword of the setting sun and release the final attack. Bang! The winged giant sword of the setting sun hit Hang Chen viciously, drowning his body and exploding with a deafening sound. At that moment, everything within a 30-meter radius turned into a field of golden light. It was so dazzling that everyone could not open their eyes. Even the scorching sun high in the sky was covered by the golden sword qi, appearing dim and lifeless. The dragon viewing platform was shaking violently as if there was a super earthquake. Huge ravines were formed on the ground. Many disciples were shaken to the ground. They could not stand steadily and fell to the ground. The violent strength qi turned into a golden hurricane and exploded in all directions, blowing the sand and stones of the dragon viewing platform into the air. Such a gorgeous and shocking sword move shocked everyone on the platform. It was unforgettable. After a long time, the golden light and dust that blotted out the sky gradually dissipated. The dragon viewing platform was quiet again. Ji Tianqing and Hang Chen's figures also appeared. Everyone looked over and saw Ji Tianqing standing proudly in the field. His face was still cold and indifferent. The 3-meter-long giant sword of the setting sun had already turned back into the sword embryo and was put back into his body. The dazzling and devastating sword move just now had consumed 80% of his vital essence. He was very weak and his spirit was also somewhat dispirited. However, the result of that sword move was shocking. On the ground of the dragon viewing platform, a huge pit with a radius of 3 meters was blasted out. There were hundreds of wide cracks around it, like a spider web. Hang Chen was seriously injured and unconscious. He was lying at the bottom of the crater covered in blood. Half of his body was buried by countless gravel and dust. The armor he was wearing was completely destroyed and turned into a pile of twisted scrap iron. His tall and burly body was also covered with crisscrossing wounds. There was also a bowl-sized bloody hole in his waist that went through his front and back. It was a miracle that he was not killed on the spot after suffering such serious injuries. Even if he was lucky enough to survive, his injuries were too severe. He would not be able to recover without 2 or 3 years of recuperation. The dragon viewing platform was silent. Everyone was stunned. They widened their eyes and opened their mouths in silence. They even forgot to breathe. Even the deacons and elders of the two sects, as strong practitioners of the origin elixir realm, were shocked by this. After a long time, the crowd finally recovered from the shock. Suddenly, the crowd was in an uproar. They exclaimed and roared in disbelief. "Oh my God! Is that guy still human? He almost tore down the entire dragon viewing platform. He's only at LV1 of the Tongxian realm, but he has such terrifying destructive power. What kind of swordsmanship did he use? It's incredible. Today, I can see such a shocking swordsmanship and witness such a wonderful battle. It's simply a great fortune. Why? Why is it like this? How can Hangchen lose? How can our Tianjian sect lose? Ha ha ha. We won. Ji Tianqing really created a miracle and defeated Hangchen. Long Shan has finally returned to our Sky Pillar sect. Ji Tianqing. Good job. You're a great contributor to our sect. We're proud of you. Exclamations and shouts sounded one after another from the north and south sides of the dragon viewing platform. The people of the Sky Pillar sect were wild with excitement. Several disciples were dancing and cheering. Even Han Xiaoxing and Du Wu were discussing with surprise. The people of the Tianjian sect were grief-stricken. Their faces were extremely ugly as they discussed and cursed in disbelief. Especially Elder Master Tang and the Discipline Hall Elder, their faces were so gloomy that water was about to drip out. In this Longshan tournament, not only did they lose Longshan, but their newly recruited genius, Hang Chen, was also seriously injured and on the verge of death. It was simply miserable to the extreme. Today, the 6th update had arrived. Xiao He knew that the brothers and sisters were waiting anxiously, so he didn't wait until 20 o'clock to update. He updated in advance just to make everyone happy. Xiao He updated 6 times every day. This was known to all the brothers who had been following the updates for a few days. However, some people with bad intentions insisted that Xiao He only updated 2 or 3 times a day. For these people with ulterior motives, don't pay attention to them, and don't be misled by them. Chapter 200. The crowd on the dragon viewing platform clamored for a long time without quieting down. The people of the Tianjian sect were filled with grief, indignation, and humiliation. Elder Master Tang was too ashamed to announce the results of the competition. In the end, Chu Huaishan walked to the center of the field and announced the final result with a booming voice. The Sky Pillar sect wins the 3rd match. After saying that, he looked at the 2 elders of the Heavenly Sword sect with a face full of smiles and said loudly, "I announce that the Sky Pillar sect has won 2 out of 3 matches in this Dragon Mountain Grand Tournament. From now on, Dragon Mountain belongs to the Sky Pillar sect. According to the rules, the people of the Tianjian sect must evacuate Dragon Mountain within 2 days." As his voice fell, the disciples of the Fengyun courtyard let out a burst of excited cheers. Everyone knew that the victory of this tournament was not easy to come by, and it was also beyond everyone's expectations. Ji Tianqing was worthy of being called the #1 genius of the Fengyun courtyard. He had created an incredible miracle in front of everyone and won victory and honor for the Sky Pillar sect. Although the disciples did not participate in the battle, they were fellow disciples of the same sect as Ji Tianqing. They were all on the same side and shared honor and disgrace. Now that Ji Tianqing had won an unbelievable victory, the disciples also felt honored and proud. The people of the Tianjian sect had gloomy faces and did not say a word. Those disciples had been very arrogant and proud before, but now they were crying as if their parents had died. Elder Master Tang and the Discipline Hall Elder were full of anger, but they could only hold it in. When they heard Chu Huaishan's announcement, the two of them had no choice but to salute and say in a low voice, "Congratulations to your sect for winning. Our sect has lost. We will follow the rules and evacuate Dragon Mountain as soon as possible." The Tianjian sect had already lost miserably enough. The two elders could not act shamelessly. That would only be more humiliating. They just wanted to leave the dragon viewing platform as soon as possible to avoid being ridiculed by the people of the Sky Pillar sect. At this point, this year's Dragon Mountain tournament was finally over. Ji Tianqing walked back into the crowd with an indifferent expression. He was surrounded by several disciples of the Wind Cloud Hall, as if he was the moon surrounded by stars. The deacon of the Tianjian sect rushed to the field and took Hang Chen, who was lying unconscious in the big pit, away. Then he rushed back to the Tianjian sect. With Hang Chen's severe injuries, if they were not treated in time, his life would be in danger. After a while, the people of the Tianjian sect left the dragon viewing platform one after another. When the two elders and deacons left, they didn't even say goodbye to the Sky Pillar sect. Clearly, they were extremely angry and disappointed. However, the people from the Sky Pillar sect were not in a hurry to leave. They continued to discuss on the dragon viewing platform for a long time. Han Xiaoxing walked to Ji Tianqing's side and said with a gratified smile, "Ji Tianqing, well done. Today, you have indeed created a miracle and defeated Hang Chen. You have truly brought honor to our dean. News of your battle with Hang Chen will definitely spread throughout the ancient realm of the stars and reach the ears of all major sects." After he finished speaking, he looked at the disciples of the Storm Hall. "Are you very envious of Ji Tianqing? Are you also fantasizing that one day you can be like him and make contributions to our sect and become famous in the ancient realm of the stars?" The disciples nodded one after another, their faces full of expectation and longing. Han Xiaoxing smiled and said earnestly, "I believe you have also seen that with Ji Tianqing's strength, he was not Hang Chen's opponent. So how did he defeat Hang Chen? It is because he is calm and wise. He knows how to use his strengths and advantages to combine the Array Dao and the Martial Dao to continuously weaken Hang Chen's strength. In the end, he defeated Hang Chen. In the past 2 months, I have often taught you to learn and apply it flexibly. You should see more and think more. Studying the Alchemy Dao and the Array Dao will also be of great benefit to your Martial Dao. Today, you have all seen that Ji Tianqing did this. Therefore, he created a miracle and defeated Hang Chen. If you can also be like Ji Tianqing, I believe that one day you will also become true geniuses and make a name for our sect." Han Xiaoxing's words immediately made the disciples' blood boil and they couldn't help but applaud. 2 months ago, when Han Xiaoxing said these words to them, they didn't have much of a deep feeling. At this moment, Ji Tianqing's performance proved this truth. Only then did the disciples truly understand and comprehend Han Xiaoxing's intentions. The martial Dao was the foundation of one's life. It was extremely important. Although the Alchemy Dao and the Array Dao were auxiliary studies, if they were thoroughly studied and used reasonably, it would also make everyone's martial Dao strength more powerful. Today's battle between Ji Tianqing and Hang Chen also gave the disciples of the Storm Hall a vivid lesson. Everyone's eyes gathered on Ji Tianqing. They regarded him as a great hero, a top genius, and the pride of the Storm Hall. As for Lu Mingyang, he stood in the crowd and was completely forgotten. No one paid attention to him, and no one blamed him. Everyone ignored him. He silently looked at Ji Tianqing, his heart filled with unwillingness and jealousy. His expression was very ugly. However, he had personally seen how Ji Tianqing defeated Hang Chen and was very impressed by Ji Tianqing's strength. He had to admit that Ji Tianqing was indeed a genius with courage and wisdom. He was qualified to receive such an honor. Whether it was courage, wisdom, or strength, Ji Tianqing could crush him. What qualifications did he have to be dissatisfied with Ji Tianqing? After a long time, everyone quieted down. Han Xiaoxing and Du Wu led the 9 disciples down the mountain and rode their chasing wind horses back to the Sky Pillar sect. Ji Tianqing, on the other hand, was given special treatment. He was given the treatment that only those who had rendered meritorious service would receive. Chu Huaishan brought him on a spirit bird and flew high in the sky towards the Sky Pillar sect. In the Sky Pillar sect, Sect Master Chu Tianqing lived in the palace. He was sitting cross-legged in a secret room with an ancient bronze chessboard in front of him. Although there were crisscrossing lines on the chessboard, there were no chess pieces. Instead, there were some kind of array pattern. The chessboard lit up with white light and condensed into a white screen that looked like a mirror. The image in the mirror was the dragon viewing platform at the peak of Dragon Mountain. This bronze chessboard was called the Heaven Reading Disc. Like the star chart, it was a powerful heaven origin artifact. It was one of the many secret treasures of the Sky Pillar sect. Chu Tianqing sat in the secret room and used the Heaven Reading Disc to pay attention to the dragon viewing platform hundreds of miles away. He could see the situation of the Dragon Mountain tournament. Now that the Dragon Mountain tournament was over, the 2 sects had left. Chu Tianqing frowned and pondered for a moment before revealing a gratified smile and putting away the Heaven Reading Disc. Ji Tianqing, oh Ji Tianqing, I really didn't misjudge you. You are indeed the person shown by the star chart. Your wisdom and talent are on par with Yunyao. As long as I continue to secretly nurture you, you will become a genius on par with Yunyao sooner or later. Our sect is lucky to have a genius like Yunyao. Now we have another Ji Tianqing. God bless our Sky Pillar sect. Today's update will continue. It's a new week. Please recommend me. Chapter 201. In the vast mountain range thousands of miles away from the Dragon Mountain, there was a desolate mountain peak. Inside the mountain peak was the Demon's Cave. Ji Tianqing, Yunyao, and the others had entered this place before. Inside the Demon's Cave, there was a dark and cold secret room. The Blood Moon Infanta and the High Priest stood in the room, staring at a mirror on the wall. It was a 2-meter-tall oval-shaped mirror made of blood-red crystal. It contained a miraculous array formation and magic power. This was a powerful artifact of the demon race. Like the High Priest's smoke net umbrella, it was a heavenly origin-grade artifact. A slightly blurry image appeared in the mirror, showing the scene of the dragon viewing platform. The Dragon Mountain tournament had ended, and the Blood Moon Infanta and the High Priest had watched it for more than 2 hours. The 2 of them watched the entire Dragon Mountain Grand Tournament and witnessed Ji Tianqing defeat Hang Chen with their own eyes. Both of them were silent. Their eyes flickered with a dense cold light, causing the temperature in the room to become even colder. After a long time, the High Priest opened his mouth and said with a hoarse voice, "In my opinion, the previous Dragon Mountain tournament was just a small fight between the Tianjian sect and the Sky Pillar sect. This time, Ji Tianqing's participation in the Dragon Mountain Grand Competition has indeed made it extremely exciting. To be able to see that kid's strength and trump card, it was worth it for me to use more than a dozen spirit stones to activate the demonic mirror." The Blood Moon Infanta said in a deep voice, "High Priest, you already guessed that kid's talent was extraordinary and would become a big problem for us in the future. That's why you paid so much attention to him, right?" The High Priest nodded and said in a deep voice, "That's right. There's something strange about that kid. In just a short month, he actually reached the Mystic Comprehending Realm and defeated an expert at the 5th stage of the Mystic Comprehending Realm. It's really unbelievable." The Blood Moon Infanta frowned and said in a low voice, "Back then, you detected the aura of the heavenly star bead in his body. Now, it seems that his monstrous talent is most likely related to the heavenly star bead. I only hate that I didn't kill him back then and allowed him to grow to such a level. If he's given a few more years, I'm afraid he'll grow to the point where he can stand shoulder to shoulder with me. The high priest sneered and said coldly, so what? We only need to keep a close eye on him, and we'll be able to obtain clues and the whereabouts of the heavenly star bead from him. That's good too. The Blood Moon Infanta nodded and said in an awe-inspiring tone, for the sake of the heavenly star bead and the revival of our race, let him live for a few more days. The high priest was silent. He frowned and pondered for a while before talking about another topic. Dragon Mountain is just an ordinary treasure land. Even I am not interested in it. In the ancient realm of the stars, there are many places with spirit veins like this. Now, the Tianjian sect is wantonly excavating Longshan. It's almost emptied. Why would the two strongest sects in the star ancient realm fight so fiercely over this spiritual vein that is about to be abandoned? Especially the Tianjian sect. It seems that they are determined to win this Longshan competition. Is a hollowed-out abandoned mountain worth their unscrupulous fight? Hearing this, the Blood Moon Infanta frowned and pondered. After a while, she asked tentatively, High Priest, do you mean that there might be some secrets or treasures hidden in Dragon Mountain that the Tianjian sect is so reluctant to part with? That's right. I have this suspicion. The high priest's face was solemn, and his eyes were shining brightly. However, this is only my guess. As for the exact reason, we still need to investigate before we can know. He thought for a while and said to the Blood Moon Infanta, Infanta, take some people to the Tianjian sect. It's best if you can capture a disciple who is participating in the competition. When the time comes, I will interrogate him and see what the Tianjian sect is trying to do. Okay, I'll go right away. The Blood Moon Infanta cupped her hands and left the secret room to carry out her mission. After returning to the sky-bearing sect, Chu Huaishan rode his spirit bird and landed outside the gate of the Fengyun courtyard. He saw that Ji Tianqing was very weak and had suffered heavy injuries, so he asked Ji Tianqing to go back to the Fengyun courtyard to treat his injuries first. Ji Tianqing, go back to the Fengyun courtyard and recuperate. You have made a great contribution to the sect this time. I will go to the sect leader later and ask for a reward for you. I believe that the sect leader will reward you personally after you finish recuperating. Ji Tianqing smiled and cupped his hands. Thank you, Elder Chu. I will take my leave now. After saying goodbye to Chu Huaishan, he returned to the Fengyun courtyard. After returning to his room, he quickly took out medicinal powder and white cloth from his 100 treasures brocade pouch to treat his injuries. Others only knew that he had defeated Hang Chen in public and created a miracle, but they didn't know how much effort he had put in to create this miracle. In order to defeat Hang Chen, he had done his best and used almost all of his abilities and trump cards. Before the competition began, he had already learned about Hang Chen's background. He knew that Hang Chen's martial strength was strong, but his talent in formations was very slow, so he used a sword formation in the competition. Even so, he was still unable to defeat Hang Chen and was even injured by Hang Chen, leaving several hideous wounds on his body. In the end, he was forced to use his trump card, the sword embryo, to completely defeat Hang Chen. Hang Chen was seriously injured and unconscious. His injuries were very miserable. However, Ji Tianqing didn't have it easy either. After using the sword embryo, he had consumed 80% of his true origin, and his strength was extremely weak. Even the sword embryo had become dim and dull, no longer showing its sharpness. His vitality was also greatly damaged. Fortunately, everything was over. He had won back Dragon Mountain for the Sky Pillar sect, so he would definitely be heavily nurtured by the sect. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing's pale face revealed a smile. There is no honor or treatment that can be obtained without sowing. I need to fight for it myself. Only by becoming stronger and showing my value to the sect can I be valued by the sect. Fortunately, I succeeded. Now, it can be considered that the clouds have parted and the moon has seen the light. I can finally cultivate in peace and continue to increase my strength. Muttering a few words in a low voice, Ji Tianqing started to circulate his energy to heal his injuries, recovering his weak physical strength and true origin. Unknowingly, a day passed. At dawn the next day, Ji Tianqing's injuries were no longer serious, and his complexion also returned to normal. Following this, he still needed to meditate and recuperate for half a month before he could recover to his peak state. And at this time, the news of the victory in the Dragon Mountain competition had already spread in the Sky Pillar sect. Not only the outer court disciples, but even the inner court disciples, many deacons, and elders knew the news of the competition's victory. The disciples of the Wind Cloud Hall even publicized the process of the competition, describing the battle between Ji Tianqing and Heng Chen as brilliant, full of ups and downs, and very gripping. Very soon, Ji Tianqing and Heng Chen's peak battle spread in the Sky Pillar sect, causing countless disciples to be shocked and discuss. Chapter 202. Early in the morning, Ji Tianqing finished his cultivation. He turned his head to look out the window and found that the sun had yet to rise. It was drizzling outside the window. The pitter-patter of rain fell on the leaves, making a rustling sound. Ji Tianqing walked to the window, opened it, and breathed in the fresh air. After entering the sect for so long, the sun has been shining brightly almost every day. It's rare to encounter rain, this is interesting. He whispered, and the corners of his mouth hooked up into a smile. At this time, he suddenly saw a graceful figure at the entrance of the Tempest courtyard. She was holding a light green paper umbrella, and her footsteps were light as she walked into the courtyard. The graceful figure wearing a long green dress was clearly a young girl. Although the paper umbrella covered the girl's face, Ji Tianqing felt that her graceful figure was somewhat familiar. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and thought to himself, that young girl holding an umbrella came to the Tempest courtyard early in the morning. Who could she be? At this time, the door to a room opposite Ji Tianqing's room suddenly opened. Lu Mingyang, wearing a green robe, walked out with a face full of surprise and excitement. He quickly walked towards the young girl holding the umbrella. He strode in front of the young girl and blocked her path. He said with a heart full of joy, "Junior Xian, why have you come to the Tempest courtyard? It's still raining outside. If you're looking for me, you can send me a message, and I'll personally come to see you." Lu Mingyang's mood was too pleasantly surprised. Once he opened his mouth, a long string of words came out. The gentleness and adoration in his eyes couldn't be concealed. The young girl holding the umbrella was Xian. She slightly raised the paper umbrella and glanced at Lu Mingyang who was blocking in front of her. "I'm sorry, I'm not looking for you. Please move aside." Xian's expression was calm, and her tone was indifferent. She then walked around Lu Mingyang and walked towards Ji Tianqing's room. Lu Mingyang was immediately stunned, and the pleasantly surprised expression on his face instantly froze. He stood there awkwardly in the drizzle. Looking at Xian's back, his heart was full of disappointment. When he saw Xian walking towards Ji Tianqing's room, his face immediately turned gloomy and his eyes flashed with hatred. Xian nimbly walked under the eaves and put away the paper umbrella. As soon as she raised her head, she saw Ji Tianqing standing by the window, looking at her with a smile. Xian was startled for a moment before a gentle smile appeared on her pretty face. Her voice was gentle as she said, "Tianqing, you're already up. It seems that I've come at the right time." Ji Tianqing of course understood that Xian was looking for him. He quickly opened the door and welcomed Xian into the room. After Xian sat down, he glanced at Lu Mingyang in the courtyard and closed the window. "Junior sister Xian, it's raining today. Why did you personally come to the Tempest courtyard to find me?" Xian nodded and revealed an extremely beautiful smile. "Last night, I heard grandfather talk about the Dragon Mountain tournament. Only then did I know that you took back the Dragon Mountain for our sect and even got injured. Last night, I wanted to come and see you, but it was too late. I guessed that you must be recuperating, so I didn't disturb you. Today, I came not only to congratulate you on your victory, but also to bring you some healing pills. You will definitely need them. After saying this, she took out a small white jade bottle from her ring and placed it in front of Ji Tianqing. Here are 2 Tai Ching pills. Their healing effects are comparable to Jade Dew pills. I personally refined them. Ji Tianqing knew that Xian Xian's grandfather was the Great Elder. Yesterday, he personally supervised the tournament on the dragon viewing platform. He originally wanted to decline, but he couldn't resist Xian Xian's insistence. He also couldn't bear to refuse Xian Xian's kind intentions, so he accepted the bottle. It just so happened that he had used up all his cultivation resources, so he didn't even have a single healing pill. Xian Xian sent 2 pills early in the morning, which solved his urgent need. Junior sister Xian Xian, thank you. Ji Tianqing sincerely thanked her. Xian Xian smiled and nodded. She chatted with him for a while, telling him to focus on recuperating. After a quarter of an hour, Xian Xian said her goodbyes and left. When Ji Tianqing sent her out of the room, he saw that Lu Mingyang was still standing in the courtyard. Although Lu Mingyang's entire body was soaked from the rain, he didn't feel it at all. He was still coldly staring at him. Ji Tianqing was too lazy to pay attention to him. He waved goodbye to Xian Xian and watched Xian Xian leave the storm courtyard. Only then did he turn around and return to his room. Not long after, just as he was about to take the Tai Ching pill to heal his injuries, there was a knock on the door. Big brother Tianqing, are you there? Following the knock on the door, Ji Ku's voice, which was filled with concern, entered the room. Ji Tianqing hurriedly put away the Tai Ching pill and opened the door. He saw Ji Ku standing outside the door. She was still wearing a long green dress, but it was changed to the special style of the spiritual medicine hall's disciples. Moreover, she didn't bring a paper umbrella, so her hair and dress were all wet. The thin dress clung to her body, revealing her graceful and moving curves. He could faintly see a large area of white and tender skin. Ji Tianqing hurriedly pulled her into the room and said with a somewhat reproachful tone, "Cuckoo, you silly girl. The spiritual medicine hall is more than 10 miles away from the spiritual medicine hall. Why didn't you bring a paper umbrella?" Although he said that, he had already found a clean handkerchief and helped Ji Ku wipe the rain from her body and face. Ji Ku didn't care about the rain at all. She even liked Ji Tianqing's protective action of helping her wipe her face. Her charming face revealed a smile and she hurriedly explained, "Big brother Tianqing, I was in a hurry to deliver the medicine to you. Therefore, I forgot to bring an umbrella when I went out." Ji Tianqing wasn't surprised by Ji Ku's occasionally muddle-headed personality. After helping Ji Ku wipe the rain, he sat down with her to talk. After the two of them chatted for a while, Ji Ku took out 3 jade bottles from her sleeve and placed them in front of Ji Tianqing. She introduced them to Ji Tianqing as if she was very familiar with them. "Big brother Tianqing, these are the pills that the spiritual medicine elder asked me to deliver to you. These pills are mysterious dragon pills. They are specially used to treat sword wounds. There are a total of 3 pills. Take one every 2 days. These are extreme blood pills. They are used to treat internal injuries. There are a total of 6 pills. Take one every night, these are recovery pills. There are a total of 12 pills. They can help you quickly recover your true essence." Hearing Ji Ku skillfully introduce the 3 pills, Ji Tianqing revealed a gratified smile. It seemed that Ji Ku had only been a disciple of the spiritual medicine hall for a few days, but she had already learned a lot. Ji Tianqing accepted the pills with a smile and remembered Ji Ku's advice. The two of them chatted for a while. Ji Tianqing finally felt relieved when he learned that Ji Ku was well taken care of in the spiritual medicine hall and that everything was going smoothly. After a quarter of an hour, Ji Ku said goodbye and left. When Ji Tianqing sent Ji Ku out, he saw Lu Mingyang still standing in the courtyard in the rain with a dazed look. Not long after he returned to his room, there was a knock on the door. Hearing the knock, Ji Tianqing shook his head with a bitter smile and whispered, "What's going on today? It's clearly raining. Why are they looking for me one after another?" When he opened the door, he saw a beautiful woman in a white dress standing at the door. Chapter 203. Without a doubt, this beautiful woman in a long white dress was Yun Yao. Although she didn't bring a paper umbrella and seemed to have come to the storm courtyard in the rain, there was no trace of rain on her face. However, there was not the slightest trace of rain on her body. Her temperament was as cold and otherworldly as before, like a fairy who did not eat the food of mortals. Since she was a fairy from the ninth heaven, how could her clothes be drenched by the rain? "Eldest senior sister, why are you here?" Ji Tianqing greeted Yun Yao with a smile and welcomed Yun Yao into the room. "I'm here to see you." Yun Yao nodded slightly and stepped into the room. After sitting down, she looked at Ji Tianqing with concern and asked, "How are your injuries?" Ji Tianqing waved his hand and explained, "They're only minor injuries. I'll recover after 2 days of rest." Yun Yao nodded and took out 2 things from her ring, placing them in front of Ji Tianqing. These 2 things were a black ring and a small white jade bottle. Yun Yao explained to him, "The sect leader already knows about the Longshan tournament and is very satisfied with your performance. The sect leader asked me to bring these 2 things to you. Take them." Ji Tianqing looked at the black ring and the small white jade bottle and asked doubtfully, "There must be pills in the bottle." "I know that. But, eldest senior sister, what kind of treasure is this ring?" Yun Yao explained to him, "This is a top-grade profound-level treasure, a space ring. There's a small space in the ring that can store daily necessities." Ji Tianqing understood as soon as he heard this. The effect of this thing was basically the same as his 100 treasures pouch. He already had a 100 treasures pouch and didn't need a space ring. However, Yun Yao persuaded him, "Junior brother Tianqing, although this space ring is exquisite, it's not a particularly rare treasure. The elders, deacons, and elite disciples all have them. Furthermore, the sect leader specially asked me to give this to you. You must accept it." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "In that case, I'll accept it. Thank you, senior sister." Yun Yao warned again, "There are 2 dew pills in that jade bottle. They can help you quickly recover your injuries and true essence. You should be able to use them. The competition has just ended, and the Tianjian sect is in the process of handing over some things to the Tianjian sect. You should focus on recuperating for the next few days." Ji Tianqing accepted the interspatial ring and the white jade bottle before chatting with her for a while. After a while, Yun Yao got up and left. When Ji Tianqing sent her off, Lu Mingyang finally did not continue to stand in the courtyard in the rain. For the next few hours, Ji Tianqing wanted to take medicinal pills to heal himself, but he was unable to do so. Every once in a while, someone would knock on the door and visit with gifts. Most of these people were disciples of the Storm Hall. Everyone was full of admiration for Ji Tianqing. They came to check on his injuries and gave him some medicinal pills and gifts, taking the opportunity to get closer to him. After all, everyone knew that Ji Tianqing was now an influential figure in the outer sect. He was a hero of the Sky Pillar sect, and his future was limitless. What Ji Tianqing didn't expect was that after he sent away 6 or 7 disciples, Emo and Shi Jingqing also came knocking on the door with gifts. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Shi Jingqing and Emo standing outside, looking at him with a smile. "Senior Marshal Brother Ji, we've come to see you." "Senior Marshal Brother Ji, we took the liberty to disturb you. Please don't take offense." Seeing their smiling faces, Ji Tianqing couldn't treat them coldly, so he led them into the room. After entering the room, the 2 didn't even sit down before they simultaneously cupped their hands and bowed to Ji Tianqing. They said in a sincere tone, "Senior Marshal Brother Ji, we came here today mainly to see how your injuries are. In addition, we also want to take this opportunity to apologize to you for the mistakes we made in the past. When we first entered the storm hall, we weren't familiar with each other, so there were many misunderstandings and some unpleasant quarrels. At that time, we were short-sighted and repeatedly criticized Senior Marshal Brother G. Now, every time we recall those words, we feel ashamed and uneasy. The two's expressions didn't seem to be fake at all. Their sincere apologies surprised Ji Tianqing. However, he didn't show it on his face. He faintly smiled and said, "We're all disciples of the same sect, and we're all geniuses of our respective countries. It's normal for us to be arrogant and conceited." Emo and Shi Jingqing repeatedly nodded and said, "That's right. In the past, we were all famous young geniuses in our respective countries. We considered everyone beneath our notice and were used to being arrogant. Now that we've entered the sect, we've seen the true world of martial arts. Our horizons have been broadened, and we've realized that there is always a mountain higher than the other. We've realized how laughable our conceit was. Senior Marshal Brother G, please don't take our previous arrogant words to heart. Please don't lower yourself to our level." Ji Tianqing could tell that after what had happened at the Dragon Mountain tournament, the two of them truly admired him. However, the more important reason was that the two knew that he would definitely rise in the future and become a disciple that the sect would focus on cultivating. Under these circumstances, the two were definitely worried that he would retaliate or suppress them afterwards. Therefore, the two hurriedly came to apologize, hoping to bury the hatchet and reconcile. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. He was somewhat moved in his heart. After all, we were born in a world of martial arts where the strong prey on the weak. The strong are like dragons, and the weak are like ants. No matter whether it's changing the rudder according to the wind or seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages, everyone will despise the weak and respect the strong. What a realistic human nature. Ji Tianqing was not a narrow-minded person. Of course, he wouldn't harp on those trivial matters. Emo and Shi Jingqing didn't have any deep hatred for him. It was just a verbal dispute. Since the two of them had come to his door to apologize, and their attitude was very sincere, he just laughed it off and threw all the old grudges to the back of his mind. "Junior Marshal brothers, don't worry about anything. In the future, we'll still be brothers in the same sect. We'll still have to take care of each other in times of danger. As for those trivial matters before, I won't take them to heart." Hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Shi Jingqing and Emo both smiled. They were finally relieved. The two chatted with Ji Tianqing for a while. They each gave him a few spiritual fruits and elixirs before leaving. Ji Tianqing sent the two away and sat in the room for a while. At noon, when no one came to visit, he entered the secret room. He first took out the space ring that Yunyao gave him. After playing with it for a while, he figured out how to use the ring. The space in this space ring was the same as the space in the 100 treasures brocade pouch. They were both as big as a room. In contrast, the space ring was more convenient to carry around than the 100 treasures brocade pouch. Therefore, Ji Tianqing used his soul sense to refine the space ring. Then, he put the ring on his hand. He stored the elixirs and gifts that everyone gave him in the space ring. It was convenient for him to use them at any time. As for the little ice fox and the little black dragon, they were still in the 100 treasures brocade pouch. In the future, the pouch would only be their nest. Chapter 204. After sacrificing the spatial ring, Ji Tianqing sat in the spirit gathering array and started to heal his injuries. In the morning, everyone gave him countless medicinal pills, enough for him to go into seclusion to heal his injuries for a month. And among the medicinal pills that everyone gave, the Jade Dew pill and Extreme Clear pill were obviously of the highest grade and had the best effects. Ji Tianqing took the 2 Extreme Clear pills that Xian gave him and started to refine the medicinal power to heal his injuries. The light in the secret room was dim and he couldn't see the changes in the sky outside. Time also seemed to pass faster. Under the catalysis of his true essence, the extreme clear pill turned into a gentle and majestic medicinal power, like a calmly flowing river, flowing endlessly into his meridians and limbs. As he refined and absorbed the medicinal power, he secretly sighed in his heart. Xian's attainments in alchemy must be extraordinary to be able to refine such a powerful extreme clear pill. In terms of the healing effect of medicinal pills, the extreme clear pill was not inferior to the jade dew pill refined by the spirit medicine hall. Time flew by quickly and Ji Tianqing's injuries were also quickly recovering. His true essence was also quickly recovering. The dim sword embryo in his body also became brighter and brighter, recovering its strength. 3 days later, he refined the medicinal power of the 2 extreme clear pills. His injuries were basically healed and his strength was also recovered by 50%. Next, Ji Tianqing took another 2 jade dew pills and continued to cultivate. Another 3 days passed and his strength finally recovered to its peak. However, the medicinal power of the jade dew pill still remained and was still majestic and surging. Ji Tianqing continued to cultivate, using the medicinal power of the jade dew pill to try to refine the first aperture point of the first main meridian. The 4th level of the path of the sword required him to refine the 72 aperture points of the 9 main meridians. Once the 8 aperture points of each main meridian were completely refined, his strength would correspondingly increase by 1 level. Tempering the acupoints was much more difficult than tempering the meridians. It required greater endurance and willpower, as well as more meticulous control of true essence. Ji Tianqing cultivated unhurriedly and tried little by little, constantly exploring and accumulating experience. With the help of the jade dew pill's medicinal power, he still spent a day before he finished refining the first acupoint. However, after the first acupoint was successfully refined, the increase in his strength was negligible. However, he had succeeded in taking the first step and accumulated some experience in refining acupoints. He was excited and gratified. Phew, Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation, exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, and opened his eyes. Originally, I would have needed to recuperate for half a month to recover. However, with the pills that Xian and eldest senior sister gave me, I only needed 7 days to recover. He smiled, got up, and walked out of the secret room. When he returned to his room, he saw the sun shining brightly outside the window. It was morning. Ever since I went on a mission with eldest senior sister, I haven't been to Great and Palace in so many days. I wonder if that stinky old man will blame me. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing left the Tempest courtyard and rushed towards the Great Peace Palace. 15 minutes later, he reached the gates of Great Peace Palace. He greeted the sword servant guarding the gates and entered the Great Peace Palace, heading straight for the 3rd courtyard. When he entered the 3rd courtyard, he saw Xiang Wuji carrying a white jade water bottle, watering the medicinal plants in the nursery. Those medicinal plants had already grown to a foot tall, the leaves were crisp and green, emitting a rich vitality and fragrance. Xiang Wuji was watering as he hummed a little tune, seeming to be in a good mood. Ji Tianqing walked to his side, cupped his hands and bowed, "Senior, Junior has come to see you." Xiang Wuji didn't even turn his head as he continued to water, curling his lips and said, "You haven't come for almost a month, I thought you weren't coming. Why did you think of coming to see this old man today?" Ji Tianqing smiled and explained, "Senior, in this period of time, Junior had too many things to do. Not only did I have to help eldest senior sister with her mission, I also had to prepare for the Dragon Mountain tournament." Before he could finish, Xiang Wuji waved his hand and interrupted him, all right, what's there to explain? How could this old man not know what you've been doing in this period of time?" Xiang Wuji's tone was a bit impatient. It seemed that he knew Ji Tianqing's movements like the back of his hand. Ji Tianqing understood his temperament, so he didn't feel awkward at all. He just smiled silently. At this time, Xiang Wuji smacked his lips, revealing a rare gratified smile. "You did well in the Dragon Mountain tournament, you've made our sky-bearing sect proud." Xiang Wuji didn't praise people easily. Ji Tianqing had known him for so long, but he hadn't been praised many times. For him to say this, it was clear that he was very satisfied and gratified. Ji Tianqing smiled and said a few modest words, then went to find a broom and a bamboo basket to clean the courtyard. Xiang Wuji turned his head to look at him, frowning and asking, "Are you addicted to sweeping? Put down the things, you don't need to sweep today. Come, use the flying star sword art. This old man wants to see how you're doing." With that, he put away the water bottle and looked at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze. Ji Tianqing did as he was told. He hurriedly walked to the center of the courtyard and used the 1,000-feather blade. He released 9 1-meter-long golden sword lights and stabbed over 1,000 times in 5 breaths of time, causing the courtyard to flicker with sword lights and sword chi. After Xiang Wuji finished watching, he revealed a mocking smile. "You really know how to take advantage of the situation. What this old man taught you was to use 3 sword lights to stab over 1,000 times in 5 breaths of time, but you used 9 sword lights." Ji Tianqing smiled and explained, "This junior's strength is low, so of course I'm not as strong as seniors. Of course, this junior is working hard to be like you one day, using 3 sword lights to stab over 1,000 times in 5 breaths of time." Xiang Wuji nodded and said, "All right, use the second move." Ji Tianqing released 2 more sword lights and slashed at the ground 10 meters away. The sword lights and the wind gathered into a golden thunderbolt and hit the bluestone ground hard, creating a big hole in the ground and splashing out countless stones. Xiang Wuji immediately frowned and scolded, "You brat! Do you want to destroy this old man's courtyard? Later, you will clean the courtyard for this old man and fill up the hole." Ji Tianqing had expected this, so he was not surprised. He just smiled and nodded. "Senior, how is my practice of these 2 moves?" Xiang Wuji stroked his white beard and nodded, Not bad, barely qualified. Today, this old man will teach you the 3rd move of the flying star sword art. Open your eyes wide and watch." With that, he walked to the center of the courtyard and waved his hands to make a special gesture. He drew out a mysterious path and activated his vital core. The next moment, he put his palms together in front of him and pushed forward. Red Dragon Flash. A 2-meter-long sword ray that was as red as fire shot out from his palms and charged forward at a speed faster than lightning. When the red fire sword light stabbed forward, it created a surging wave of fire like a lifelike fire dragon. The power of the sword light was extremely terrifying. The entire courtyard was filled with sword chi and cracks appeared on the ground. The air became extremely hot as if it had been ignited. Boom! With a flash of the red fire dragon, the sword light shot 50 meters away, crossed the courtyard wall and hit a towering tree outside the courtyard. That tree was hundreds of years old and its trunk was as thick as a water tank. Its lush branches and leaves covered an area of 30 meters, almost covering the entire courtyard. However, the crimson dragon's flames instantly broke the tree in half. The dense leaves and branches were also covered by the monstrous flames and were instantly burned to ashes. There will be a 6th update at 20 p.m. Looking for a few recommendation tickets. Chapter 205. Ji Tianqing stared blankly at the towering tree outside the courtyard, his heart filled with shock. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would have found it hard to believe that a towering ancient tree as thick as a water tank could be smashed into pieces and burned into charcoal from dozens of meters away. What kind of destructive power was this? Was this still considered a sword art? Xiang Wuji casually executed the red dragon flash and turned to look at him. He said calmly, "Kid, did you see it clearly?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "I've seen it clearly, but I'd like to ask Senior to explain the circulation route and force exertion method of this sword technique." On the surface, the power of Scarlet Dragon Flash was indeed terrifying. However, the method and route to use this move were extremely complicated. Xiang Wuji explained it to Ji Tianqing in detail, and Ji Tianqing was able to comprehend the crux of it. He understood the essence of this sword technique. He frowned and thought for a while. Then he said to Xiang Wuji, "Senior, when you taught me this sword art, you used green wood elemental vital energy. Why were you able to use fire elemental vital energy just now? You're stupid." Xiang Wuji stared at him and said, "When a martial artist reaches the sky origin realm, he can gather the power of the 5 elements and use the 5 elemental vital energy at will. Experts of this realm can fly in the sky and burrow into the ground. They can also tread on water and tread on fire, moving unhindered between heaven and earth. When I executed the red dragon flash just now, I only used 10% of my power. If I used all my power to execute the red dragon flash, the red dragon flash would be 100 meters long and could destroy a small mountain." Ji Tianqing didn't know much about the sky origin realm. After all, this realm was too profound. It was just a legend to him. Hearing Xiang Wuji's explanation, he was not only shocked, but also looked forward to it. Of course, he finally understood Xiang Wuji's power. He was the legendary Sky Origin Realm martial artist. He looked confused and asked again, "Senior, you already control the power of the 5 elements and can control fire elemental vital energy. Of course you can execute the red dragon flash. But I'm only in the ethereal realm and my natal vital energy is of the metal element. How can I practice the red dragon flash?" This question made Xiang Wuji frown. He was hesitant. After thinking for a while, he explained, "This is a problem. I was careless. The first 2 moves of the Flying Star sword art that I created can only be used by martial artists of the Origin Core realm. This red dragon flash can only be used by martial artists of the Sky Origin realm. But since you understand the essence of the red dragon flash, you can practice this sword art. Even if you don't have fire elemental vital energy, you can replace it with metal elemental vital energy. The sword art is a sword arts, a sword art is a sword art is a sword art is a sword arts. You should practice it first. Once you reach the Sky Origin stage, you will be able to unleash its full potential." Hearing Xiang Wuji's words, Ji Tianqing understood what was going on and hurriedly cupped his hands in thanks. Next, he practiced Estes flash. The first time he used the red dragon flash, he successfully channeled his vital energy and released a 2-meter-long golden sword radiance. The golden sword radiance emitted a faint outline of a divine dragon. Even though it was not as majestic as Xiang Wuji's red dragon flash, it was still domineering. Boom! Amidst the muffled sound, the golden dragon-shaped sword light flew out 20 meters and hit the bluestone wall of the courtyard. The wall immediately caved in, and a few cracks appeared on it. Xiang Wuji felt a little heartache, but he was still pleased. He smiled in satisfaction. "Huh, you're not bad. You managed to use the red dragon flash on your first try. However, this old man used the scarlet dragon flash, while yours can only be called the golden snake flash. Kid, you still have to work hard and practice diligently." Ji Tianqing naturally understood that it was his first time practicing the Scarlet Dragon Flash, yet he was able to achieve such an effect. How astonishing was that! Xiang Wuji mocked him because he was afraid that he would become arrogant. He practiced a few more times and listened to Xiang Wuji's guidance. His understanding of Red Dragon Flash deepened, and he was at the beginning. Unknowingly, it was already afternoon. Xiang Wuji was going to take his afternoon nap again. Ji Tianqing bid farewell and left. After returning to Towering Sky Peak, he went to the outer sex chores yard. He explained the situation to the chores yard's deacon and asked the chores yard to send a few chores yard workers to the Grand Peace Palace to repair the old man's yard and walls. After all, he was not good at this kind of stone and wood construction work. It was usually done by the chores yard. After explaining this matter, he returned to the storm yard. Just as he entered the yard, he saw a few disciples standing under the banyan tree in the yard. They were discussing something in low voices. He did not pay them any attention and walked straight to his room. Just as he walked to the door, Niehao next door opened the door and greeted him. "Brother Ji, how are your injuries? I've been in seclusion for a few days. I'm completely healed now. Thank you for your concern." Ji Tianqing nodded and smiled at him. Niehao looked at the disciples under the banyan tree and said to Ji Tianqing with a serious expression, "Brother Ji, there's something you might not know. Something happened at Dragon Mountain." "Dragon Mountain? Something happened?" Ji Tianqing frowned. His eyes revealed a trace of confusion. "We won the competition. It's been 7 days. The Tianjian sect should have returned Dragon Mountain to us. What could have happened?" Niehao explained with a serious expression, "The Tianjian sect kept their promise. They evacuated everyone within 2 days and returned Dragon Mountain. In the past few days, the deacons of the sect have brought a large number of chores yard workers to Dragon Mountain. They have begun to take over Dragon Mountain. However, just yesterday, a group of chores yard workers in charge of mining suddenly disappeared without a trace. No one knows if they're dead or alive." At this point, Niehao frowned. His tone was heavy. 10 odd job disciple disappeared right in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone suspects that the Tianjian sect did it. After all, they lost the competition. They must be holding a grudge. The news has already spread throughout the sect. Everyone at Dragon Mountain is in a state of panic. The chores yard workers don't dare to enter the mountain. I heard that the sect master was very angry when he heard the news. He sent senior sister Yunyao and the outer sect elders to investigate this matter. I just saw senior sister go to Elder Chu. She should be discussing this matter with Elder Chu right now." Ji Tianqing had a plan in his mind. He vaguely felt that this incident at Dragon Mountain would cause another storm. He frowned and thought for a moment. Then he turned and walked towards the door. Niehao was startled. He quickly asked, "Brother Ji, what are you doing?" "I'm going to see what's going on." Ji Tianqing quickly walked out of the storm courtyard and walked towards the palace where Chu Huaishan lived. Chapter 206. Ji Tianqing was now an influential figure in the outer sect, and with the Sky Pillar token, he could move freely within the Sky Pillar sect. He entered the palace where Chu Huaishan lived, and when he was still outside, he heard Chu Huaishan and Yun Yao's voices coming from inside the palace. Reporting to Elder Chu, disciple Ji Tianqing requests an audience, he reported as he cupped his hands at the entrance of the palace. Chu Huaishan was obviously startled, but he immediately said loudly, "Come in." Ji Tianqing stepped into the palace and saw 3 people inside. In addition to Yun Yao and Chu Huaishan, Han Qiusheng was also present. Seeing him arrive, Chu Huaishan asked in a concerned tone, "Ji Tianqing, have you recovered from your injuries?" Yun Yao and Han Qiusheng also looked at him, their eyes filled with concern. Ji Tianqing nodded and cupped his hands, "Thank you for your concern, Elder Chu. This disciple has been in seclusion for 7 days to recover from my injuries." "That's good," Chu Huaishan nodded slightly. "Do you have something to report? Or, do you need any cultivation resources?" Ji Tianqing hurriedly explained, "Elder Chu, this disciple heard that something had happened to Dragon Mountain, so I came to see if I could do anything to help." Chu Huaishan revealed a gratified smile, "That's good. Dragon Mountain originally belonged to the outer sect, and you are the role model of the outer sect disciples. Now that something has happened to Dragon Mountain, it is rare for you to take the initiative to share the burden of our sect." Han Qiusheng also nodded in agreement, as the saying goes, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. Ji Tianqing, since you took the initiative to care about this matter, you will definitely be able to take on great responsibilities in the future. Faced with Chu Huaishan and Han Qiusheng's praise, Ji Tianqing hurriedly said a few words of modesty. Next, Chu Huaishan and Yun Yao continued to discuss the matter of Dragon Mountain. Yun Yao said with a serious expression, the news that has been circulating in the sect is that 10 odd job disciples who were mining the ore veins have gone missing. Actually, after what happened yesterday, the sect leader had already ordered the 2 deacons stationed at Dragon Mountain to personally investigate this matter. However, the 2 deacons have also gone missing. Even now, there is still no trace of them. No one knows if they are dead or alive. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing suddenly frowned, and his expression became dignified. If it was only 10 odd job disciples going missing, it was not a small matter, but it was not a big matter either. However, the 2 deacons who were stationed at Dragon Mountain had also disappeared. This matter had become very serious. But anyone that was able to assume the position of a deacon in the Sky Pillar sect required a strength at least at the first level of the Origin Core stage. There were very few Yuan Dan experts, and every single one of them was capable of assuming great responsibility. And after Long Shan's accident, 2 deacons went missing at once. To the Sky Pillar sect, this was not only a huge blow and loss, but also an intolerable provocation. If this was really the doing of the Tianjin sect, the Sky Pillar sect would definitely not swallow their anger. They would definitely seek justice. After that, Chu Huaishan introduced some information before and after the incident, allowing everyone to have a better understanding of Dragon Mountain's matter. After understanding Dragon Mountain's situation, Chu Huaishan and Yun Yao decided to set off and head to Dragon Mountain to conduct an on-site investigation. After all, they were still unable to make a conclusion based on the clues that they currently possessed. They were unable to determine who exactly did this. Seeing that Chu Huaishan and Yun Yao were about to set off, Ji Tianqing hurriedly said, "Elder Chu, this disciple requests to go with you. I can contribute a little to the sect." Chu Huaishan instantly frowned and was slightly hesitant. "Ji Tianqing, your injuries have just healed, so it's not suitable for you to go out. Moreover, there is something fishy about this matter. I'm afraid it's not a small risk." To him, Ji Tianqing was now the outer court's #1 genius, a future inner court's elite genius, and a cornerstone of the sect. He didn't want Ji Tianqing to take any risks. If anything happened to him, it would definitely be a heavy loss for the outer court. However, Yun Yao thought for a moment and nodded. "Elder Chu, junior brother Tianqing previously helped me complete the mission that the sect master gave him. He even received a reward from the sect master. Dragon Mountain is our sect's territory. This time, we're going to Dragon Mountain to investigate. It shouldn't be too dangerous. Let him come with us." Since Yun Yao had spoken, her words vaguely revealed the sect master's thoughts and intentions. Of course, Chu Huaishan wouldn't object. "That's good. Ji Tianqing is willing to share our worries. We can't refuse his kind intentions." Chu Huaishan nodded and led Ji Tianqing out of the main hall. Then, the 3 of them rode on their flying spirit beasts and flew high into the sky, rushing towards Dragon Mountain. Chu Huaishan rode on his own spirit beast, the fire bird, while Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao rode on her spirit beast, the red-crowned crane. In less than 2 hours, the 2 spirit beasts flew 300 miles and landed on the peak of Dragon Mountain. The dragon viewing platform on the peak of the mountain was still the same as 8 days ago. The ground was still full of holes and cracks that no one repaired. Chu Huaishan led Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao along the bluestone path halfway up the mountain. They wanted to enter the belly of the mountain to investigate. Ji Tianqing originally thought that after the Sky Pillar sect took back Dragon Mountain, they would definitely plant more herbs and rebuild the herb garden, restoring Dragon Mountain to its original beautiful appearance. However, along the way, he only saw a few teams of odd job workers opening up a few herb gardens on the mountain and planting some herbs that had a shorter growth period. Not long after, he followed Chu Huaishan into the cave halfway up the mountain and arrived at the depths of the mountain. When he arrived at the ore vein area, he saw that most of the odd job disciples were busy mining the ore vein. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but frown and ask Chu Huaishan, "Elder Chu, after our sect takes over Dragon Mountain, shouldn't we rebuild the herb garden and restore it to its original appearance? Chu Huaishan smiled and explained, Dragon Mountain has been damaged to this extent. If our sect wants to rebuild and repair it, not only will it consume a lot of manpower and financial resources, but it will also take at least 10 years. In these 10 years, there will be 3 more competitions on Dragon Mountain. Our sect may not be able to win every time. Once Dragon Mountain is taken away by the Tianjian sect, won't our sect's efforts to rebuild Dragon Mountain be taken advantage of by the Tianjian sect? Ji Tianqing suddenly understood. No wonder the Sky Pillar sect didn't rebuild Dragon Mountain. He said with some worry, even if our sect doesn't spend any effort to rebuild Dragon Mountain, what's the difference between us and the Tianjian sect? Chu Huaishan shook his head and said with a smile, of course there's a difference. The Tianjian sect recklessly excavates resources and wantonly destroys Dragon Mountain's spirit veins. Although our sect also excavates resources, we won't be as crazy as Dragon Mountain. Instead, we have a plan to excavate and protect Dragon Mountain to a certain extent. In addition, although Dragon Mountain is a land of treasured spirit veins, there are many such spirit veins in the Star Ancient Realm. Even if Dragon Mountain is completely destroyed one day, our sect can just find other spirit veins. After listening to Chu Huaishan's explanation, Ji Tianqing understood the Sky Pillar sect's attitude and didn't ask any more questions. At this time, Chu Huaishan also ordered him and Yun Yao, I'll go check out the other mining sites and meet with the deacon stationed at Dragon Mountain. You two go together and investigate the site of the incident. See if you can find any clues. Chapter 207. After parting ways with Chu Huaishan, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao continued their journey into the depths of the ore vein. The light in the mine was dim, and there was only one stone lantern every few dozen meters on the stone walls on both sides. The ground and the walls of the cave were made of dark brown rock, with layers of ores occasionally exposed in some areas. These ores were multicolored and contained the 5-element spirit qi, which could only be formed after thousands of years of growth. The craftsmen of the Sky Pillar sect's refining hall would refine the ores they mined, refining them into even purer 5-element spirit qi and materials to forge weapons and equipment. In addition, some gems would also appear in some areas of the ore vein with relatively high purity. These gems contained rich 5-element spirit qi, which could be used by martial artists for cultivation, setting up arrays, or refining tools. In short, ore veins were very important resources for the sect. In order to mine the ore veins under Dragon Mountain, the Sky Pillar sect had once dug hundreds of deep and serene mine tunnels. After the Tianjian sect took over Dragon Mountain, they began to excavate even more wantonly, increasing the number of mine tunnels to nearly 200 and going even deeper underground. The many mine tunnels were connected to each other, creating many intersections that were as complicated as a maze. Fortunately, Chu Huaishan had already given Yun Yao a map of the mine tunnels, so the two of them wouldn't get lost in the endless forks. After an hour, the two of them walked along the dark and winding mine tunnels for more than a dozen miles and finally arrived at the scene of the incident. This was the end of the mine tunnel, an open space with a radius of nearly 100 meters, like a spacious and dark hall. Layers of ores could be clearly seen on the walls of the cave. Between each layer of ores was a layer of rock that was 7 to 8 meters thick, while each layer of ores was more than 3 meters thick and was filled with multicolored ores. Yun Yao looked around and said in a deep voice, at the time of the incident, a group of 10 odd job disciples were mining ores in this area. Ji Tianqing looked around for a while and saw many scattered ores, as well as several pickaxes and bamboo baskets, in the open space not far away. The bamboo baskets also contained a small amount of ores that were obviously newly mined. There were also a few traces of excavation on the ore layer on the rock wall. Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and thought for a moment before probing, although those 10 odd job disciples didn't enter the outer sect, they should all be at the second or third level of the true energy realm. At the time of the incident, they should have been scattered in this area mining. Even if an expert suddenly attacked, it was impossible to capture all of them in an instant without leaving any traces. Eldest senior sister, let's search carefully. We should be able to find some clues nearby. Yunyao nodded in agreement with his analysis. The two of them spread out and began to investigate from both ends of the cave. Their eyes were sharp as they searched for traces. Not long after, Ji Tianqing discovered some clues and found many traces of fighting. On the rock walls and on the pickaxes thrown into the pile of ores, there were traces of swords and sabers. Yunyao also made the same discovery. She found many traces of fighting. After the two of them communicated with each other, they vaguely analyzed some clues. From the traces of fighting left in the cave, the fight wasn't fierce. It was very short and ended very quickly. This means that the murderer's strength is far beyond the true energy realm, and there is more than one of them. That's why they were able to capture all 10 odd job disciples so quickly. From the traces of fighting in the cave and the remaining aura of true energy, the murderer should be at the mystic comprehending realm. At this point, Ji Tianqing already had a plan in his mind. He vaguely guessed that this incident was most likely done by the Tianjian sect. However, after a moment of silence, Yunyao suddenly said another discovery. Junior brother Tianqing, I just detected the aura of the demon clan in this cave. The experts of the demon clan have been here before. What? The aura of the demon clan? Ji Tianqing was stunned. He furrowed his brows and his eyes were filled with doubt. Previously, he had assisted Yunyao in carrying out a mission and had joined hands to break into the demon cave. He knew that Yunyao had the bloodline of the heavenly spirit sacred body, so she was very sensitive to the aura of various races. Since Yunyao had detected the aura of the demon clan in the cave and confirmed that the experts of the demon clan had been here before, of course, he believed her without a doubt. He just felt puzzled. He felt that things were getting more and more complicated, and the truth was getting more and more confusing. Isn't it the Tianjian sect who did this? Why would the demon clan come here? They shouldn't be targeting Dragon Mountain. Then what do they want to do? Yunyao also furrowed her brows and looked puzzled. The two of them pondered for a moment, but they couldn't figure out any useful clues. Therefore, Yunyao suggested, judging from the traces left here, the 10 odd job disciples didn't die here. They should have been taken away by the murderer. Let's continue to explore the cave and see if we can find more clues. Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement and followed her out of the cave. They continued to walk downwards along a tunnel on the cave wall. This tunnel was even darker and a little narrow. Ji Tianqing looked at the map of the tunnel and confirmed that this tunnel was newly excavated by the Tianjian sect less than 2 years ago. The two of them walked along the tunnel for a while. Yunyao detected the aura of the demon clan again, and he also found some subtle traces. It seems that this matter is very likely related to the demon clan. The 10 odd job disciples who were captured should have been taken from here. Let's continue to go deeper. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao continued to move deeper into the cave along the tunnel. Along the way, the two of them kept finding traces and clues related to the demon clan and the odd job disciples. After about an hour, the two of them had gone several thousand meters underground. This newly excavated tunnel also came to an end. They were blocked by a pitch-black cliff in front of them. Ji Tianqing and Yunyao stood at the edge of the cliff, looking around with sharp eyes. Behind the two of them was a spacious cave, which was also the end of the tunnel and the site where the ores were collected. In front of them was the cliff, which was about 100 meters wide. The bottom of the cliff was pitch black and bottomless. Seeing this, the two of them showed puzzled expressions and whispered to each other. How can this be? There's actually a cliff deep underground. The newly excavated tunnel of the Tianjian sect was blocked by the cliff here. If we hadn't come to investigate, I'm afraid no one would have come here. Junior brother Tianqing, there's still the aura of the demon clan here. It doesn't seem to be remnants. The aura is a little heavy. I suspect that the demon clan is hiding here. We have to be careful. Just as Yun Yao reminded Ji Tianqing to be careful, several black shadows suddenly rushed out of the spacious cave behind the two of them. A total of 5 black shadows rushed out of the darkness and silently rushed toward the two of them. Their bodies were bursting with dense blood-red light and killing intent. At that moment, Yun Yao was instantly alert. A cold light flashed in her palm, and a treasured sword appeared. Junior brother Tianqing, be careful. She suddenly turned around and looked at the black shadows. She waved her hand and slashed out 5 dazzling sword rays. Chapter 208. Swish. 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 5 dazzling sword gleams shot towards the 5 figures in the darkness. The leader of the 5 black figures was a woman with a voluptuous figure. She was familiar to Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing. She instantly activated her demonic technique and turned her palms into a pair of giant bloody hands. She slapped at the 5 sword gleams. Only a series of muffled bangs could be heard as the 5 sword beams were all smashed into pieces, as if they had collapsed. Seeing this familiar scene, Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao's expressions changed slightly. A glint of killing intent flashed across their eyes. Demonis! It's you again! Yun Yao shouted angrily with a frosty face. She swung her sword at the leading demonis. Ji Tianqing also took out his black dragon sword and pounced at the 4 black figures behind the demonis with a murderous look. The 4 figures were abnormally tall and powerful. Their eyes were dark red and they were surrounded by black fog and demonic aura. They were obviously demon guards. Ji Tianqing had fought with these demon guards in the demon cave. He knew that they were all at the mystic enlightening realm. Swish. 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 He swung his black dragon sword with all his might and slashed out 4 dazzling sword gleams towards the 4 demon guards. The 4 demon guards quickly counterattacked and blocked the 4 sword gleams. Their target was very clear. They ignored Yun Yao and charged at Ji Tianqing with their swords and sabers. In the blink of an eye, Ji Tianqing was surrounded and attacked by the 4 demon guards. On the other side, Yun Yao was also fighting with Blood Moon Infanta. Their fight was so intense that it caused a gale to blow in the cave. Both of them were Origin Core realm experts. Every move they made had the power to shatter mountains and crack rocks. After exchanging a dozen moves, they moved to a corner of the cave, far away from Ji Tianqing and the 4 demon guards. The shockwaves from the battle between the two of them formed a violent gust of wind, blowing the sand and rocks in the cave into the air and splashing out countless broken stones. Bang bang! The Blood Moon Infanta swung her bloody hands towards Yun Yao, but Yun Yao dodged it. Her bloody hands slammed into the hard rock wall, leaving 2 washbowl-sized handprints on the rock wall. Dense cracks appeared all around the giant handprint, and countless pieces of gravel splashed out. Shwa! Yun Yao took the opportunity to counterattack. She swept her sword toward Blood Moon Commandery Princess, but Blood Moon Commandery Princess dodged it. The 2-meter-long blazing white sword light slashed the rock wall, creating a huge gully and sending countless rocks flying. The two of them fought back and forth, and it was difficult to determine the victor in a short time. On the other side, Ji Tianqing was besieged by 4 demon guards. His situation was very dangerous. Even though he was at LV1 of the Tongxian realm and wielded the Black Dragon sword, he was still unable to fend off the attacks of the Demon Clan guards. After all, the Demon Clan guards were all at LV4 of the Tongxian realm, and they had also cultivated the saber technique that allowed them to attack together. The 4 of them advanced and retreated in an orderly manner. All kinds of violent attacks emerged one after another. They were like stormy waves that could drown him at any time. This battle was even more dangerous and difficult than when he had fought Heng Chen. He had no choice but to put away the black dragon sword and use the flying star sword technique. Thousand Feather Blade. Ji Tianqing shouted angrily. He activated the power of the sword embryo and released 9 golden sword lights towards the 4 demon clan guards. Swish swish swish. The 9 sword lights stabbed at an extremely fast speed. They stabbed 200 times in a breath, and a dazzling golden light burst out. With him as the center, a radius of 10 meters was enveloped by the golden sword lights. Everyone's figures were also drowned by the golden light. This move was indeed effective. The 4 demon clan guards could no longer attack. They could only desperately defend against the sword lights. The sword lights collided with the long saber and the heavy sword constantly, producing crisp, ding ding dang dang, sounds that reverberated violently in the cave. Ji Tianqing finally felt less pressure. He took the opportunity to escape from the area enveloped by the golden light and distanced himself from the 4 demon clan guards. In a short span of 5 breaths, the 9 sword lights had stabbed more than 1,000 times. The power was extremely violent. The 4 demon clan guards were lucky not to die, but they were severely injured. It was a tragic sight. The armors worn by the 4 of them were all twisted and deformed by the sword rays, and a few cracks appeared on them. The areas that were not protected by the armor were pierced by the sword lights. There were many bloody wounds, and dark purple blood flowed out. In the blink of an eye, the 4 demon clan guards were covered in purple blood. Their hair was disheveled, and they looked extremely miserable. Fortunately, they protected their heads, chests, and other vital parts so that they would not die on the spot. Otherwise, they would have become corpses. Damn bastard! Kill him! Chop him into minced meat! The 4 demon clan guards roared furiously. They did not care about their injuries at all. Holding on to their long sabers and heavy swords, they pounced on Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing was standing more than 10 meters away. He activated the power of the sword embryo and released the second move of the flying star sword technique. Wind Thunder Strike. 2 golden sword lights slashed out crazily, killing 2 of the demon clan guards. The golden light mixed with the violent hurricane. It was like a bolt of golden lightning that struck the 2 demon clan guards in an instant. Kaboom! In the deafening loud sound, the 2 demon clan guards were sent flying. Blood splattered all over their bodies, as though there was a rain of blood. A deep pit the size of a water tank was formed on the rocky ground. Countless pieces of gravel burst out. Ji Tianqing took care of the 2 demon clan guards in one move. They were severely injured and vomited blood. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. However, there were still 2 demon clan guards. They exploded with blood-red murderous aura and charged at him recklessly to avenge their companions. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing frowned. He had no choice but to use the 3rd move of the flying star sword technique. After I mastered the Crimson Dragon Flash, I haven't really used it in a fight. You guys are just right for me to practice. This thought flashed through his mind. He immediately made a special gesture with his hands, drawing out a mysterious trajectory. He activated the true core power in his body. In the next moment, he suddenly put his palms together and pushed forward. A 2-meter-long golden sword burst out from his palm. It carried a dazzling golden flame. Like the shadow of a dragon, it attacked the 2 demon clan guards. This Crimson Dragon Flash was not only powerful, but also focused on speed. When the Crimson Dragon Flash was practiced to a high level, it would flash past like an aurora, leaving the enemy no time to react or dodge. Bang! In the muffled sound, the Crimson Dragon Flash fiercely hit the 2 demon clan guards. The tall and sturdy bodies of the 2 demon clan guards seemed especially small and weak under the golden flame of the Crimson Dragon Flash. Without a doubt, the 2 demon clan guards were also sent flying. A rain of blood sprayed from their bodies. They fell on the ground 10 meters away. Ji Tianqing used 3 moves of the ultimate sword technique in a row and finally defeated the 4 demon clan guards. He was about to chase after them and kill the 4 demon clan guards. He wanted to eliminate them completely. However, at this moment, the Blood Moon Infanta rushed over. Swoosh! She turned into a black fog of demonic energy and swept away the 4 blood-stained and heavily injured demon clan guards in an instant. In the blink of an eye, she turned around and fled with the 4 demon clan guards. What surprised Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao was that she actually jumped off the cliff as fast as lightning. Chapter 209. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were startled when they saw Blood Moon Commandery Princess jump off the cliff. Both of them were puzzled. Why did Blood Moon Commandery Princess jump off the cliff to escape? The bottom of the cliff was pitch black and bottomless, and they didn't know what kind of dangers were hidden there. Since Blood Moon Commandery Princess jumped off the cliff to escape so decisively, could it be that she knew the situation under the cliff very well? Or was it that she was forced to retreat again and again by Yun Yao, so she panicked and didn't know where to go? Ji Tianqing frowned and was considering whether he should chase after the demoness or not. Yun Yao reached out to grab his wrist and jumped off the cliff. Although his wrist was grabbed by Yun Yao's slender hand, he couldn't help but feel a strange feeling and ripple in his heart. But he was pulled by Yun Yao to jump off the cliff. At this critical moment, he didn't have time to think about random things. His mind was filled with surprise and worry. Oh my God! Eldest senior sister is pulling me to jump off the cliff. Both of us can't fly. If we chase after the demoness with all our might, won't we lose our lives? At the same time that these thoughts appeared in his mind, he and Yun Yao were continuously descending in the darkness, falling down the cliff at an extremely fast speed. Yun Yao seemed to have sensed his thoughts and used a secret sound transmission technique to say to him, "Junior brother Tianqing, don't panic. I have the fiery wind wings, so we'll be fine." As her voice fell, she reached out to pull out a white jade hairpin from her hair bun. Since the first time Ji Tianqing met Yun Yao, she had been wearing it. The hairpin was very exquisite and beautiful, with a lifelike flying bird carved on the end. In the past, Ji Tianqing only thought that this hairpin was very beautiful and matched Yun Yao's temperament very well. It made her look extremely beautiful and otherworldly like a fairy. But he didn't expect that this hairpin was actually a magic tool. When Yun Yao poured her boundless true core energy into the hairpin, it immediately lit up with a dazzling brilliance. Whoosh! The bird engraved on the hairpin seemed to come alive and instantly possessed Yun Yao's body. A ball of white light enveloped her body, and a pair of wings appeared on her back. This pair of wings was like the wings of a divine bird. The left wing was as red as fire, while the right wing was as white as snow. It was extremely gorgeous and dazzling. Yun Yao gently flapped her fiery wind wings and stopped falling, slowing down the speed of their fall. Only then did Ji Tianqing calm down. He stared at her wind and fire wings and couldn't help but reveal a look of envy. Yun Yao was looking around for traces of the Blood Moon Infanta with her sharp eyes, so she didn't notice his gaze. The bottom of the cliff was as dark as ink, without the slightest bit of light. The cliffs were also very steep, almost perfectly straight. Yun Yao flapped her fiery wind wings and circled in the air for a while, but she still didn't see the Blood Moon Infanta. Did she fall to the bottom of the cliff? Wouldn't he fall to his death? Impossible. She is the Infanta of the demon clan and has many treasures. Yun Yao analyzed silently. Then she continued to fall with Ji Tianqing and flew toward the bottom of the cliff. Ji Tianqing's left wrist was grabbed by her. His body was unbalanced, so he subconsciously stretched out his right hand and hugged her arm with both of his hands. This posture was a little intimate, which inevitably made people's imaginations run wild. But at this moment, the two of them were at the bottom of the cliff, floating in the dark air. Neither of them noticed this. Or perhaps, the two of them noticed it, but they tacitly pretended to be calm and pretended that nothing had happened. After a while, Yun Yao and Ji Tianqing fell for nearly 1,000 meters and finally landed at the bottom of the cliff. Their feet stepped on the rocky ground. The surroundings were as dark as ink. It was dead silent, and the air was a little gloomy and cold. After landing, Ji Tianqing let go of Yun Yao's arm and looked around to observe. With his current strength, even in this dark environment, he could see clearly within 20 meters of him. In addition to his eyes, he could also use his soul sense to sense and explore the surroundings. His soul sense had just been born, so it was still very weak. He could only sense within a radius of 10 meters. Yun Yao's strength was stronger, and her soul sense was also more powerful. She could explore within a radius of 100 meters. The two of them silently explored the surroundings. Neither of them spoke, and the surroundings were extremely quiet. In this dark and unfamiliar area, the two of them didn't move separately in order to avoid unpredictable dangers. Soon, 15 minutes had passed, and the two of them had explored the bottom of the cliff clearly. This was an open space with a radius of nearly 1,000 meters. The ground was made of hard rock, and there were many broken stones scattered around. Apart from the two of them, there was nothing else in the open space. There was also no trace of the Infanta of the Blood Moon. Yun Yao could clearly sense that there was no aura of the Infanta of the Blood Moon here. She frowned and thought for a while. Then she guessed the result. Junior brother Tianqing, there is no aura of the Infanta of the Blood Moon here. She has never been here. Ji Tianqing was startled. He asked in disbelief, so, she has already escaped. But we saw her jump off the cliff with our own eyes. Could it be that she jumped into the air and left this place? How is that possible? You are right. Yun Yao nodded and explained, she really escaped in the air. Although this is inconceivable, she was able to do it. She must have used the smoke net umbrella. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion, smoke net umbrella? Yes, it is a heavenly origin grade magic weapon. Yun Yao nodded slightly and explained in a calm tone, it is a sacred object of the demon tribe. It has an unimaginably powerful effect. In the past 100 years, the demon tribe's high priest has snuck into our sect several times. After being discovered by our sect's elders, he was able to escape safely. It was because of this treasure, the smoke net umbrella. After pausing for a while, she continued, if my guess is correct, the Infanta of the Blood Moon has already escaped from Dragon Mountain and is far away from this place. Sigh, what a pity. She escaped again. Ji Tianqing sighed with a face full of regret. Yun Yao said with a calm face, it's okay. We will have another chance in the future. Ji Tianqing nodded and asked, Senior sister, the trail ends at the edge of the cliff. The residual demon tribe's aura in the mine should have been deliberately left by the Infanta of the Blood Moon. She must have deliberately lured us to the edge of the cliff and ambushed us there. What should we do now? Should we go back the way we came and meet Elder Chu? Yun Yao shook her head slightly and looked at the dark area in front of them. She said in a calm tone, this place is strange. Follow me. Ji Tianqing didn't know the reason, so he quickly followed her. After walking for about 100 meters, they arrived in front of a rock wall. When they got closer, Ji Tianqing discovered that there was a pitch-black cave on the rock wall. The entrance of the cave was like a big door. Inside the cave was a pitch-black passage that led to an unknown place. This passage was obviously man-made. Moreover, the traces of it were very old. It was at least several hundred years old. Ji Tianqing immediately understood what Yun Yao meant. He couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. It seems that there are some secrets hidden in the depths of this Dragon Mountain. Chapter 210. In the evening, the sun was about to set, and the forest was dimly lit. In a mountain range 200 miles away from Dragon Mountain, a black fog was galloping in the forest. It was rushing back to the demon cave at an extremely fast speed. The black fog was like a disk or the surface of an umbrella. It was spinning in the air at an extremely fast speed. Every time it flickered, it would fly several hundred meters away. After about 2 hours, the black fog crossed several hundred miles of mountain range and finally stopped in a forest at the foot of a mountain. Swish! The black fog suddenly disappeared and turned into a black paper umbrella. Blood Moon Commandery Princess and 4 demon guards appeared in the forest out of thin air. The 4 demon guards were covered in blood and were in an extremely sorry state. Blood Moon Commandery Princess was unharmed. She stretched out her hand to hold the black paper umbrella and put it away. The black paper umbrella immediately shrunk to the size of an embroidery needle and disappeared into her palm. She stepped into a thicket of thorns and waved her hand to release several black fog to break a formation. Immediately, a gloomy cave appeared in the thicket of thorns. Blood Moon Commandery Princess was the first to enter the cave. She rushed into the cave as fast as the wind and the 4 demon guards followed closely behind her. After a short while, they returned to the gloomy and bloody demon cave. Blood Moon Commandery Princess passed through the spacious and gloomy cave and opened a stone door to enter a gloomy secret chamber. There was a dark red blood pool in the secret chamber. The statue of the demon emperor stood in the middle of the blood pool. The high priest was standing beside the blood pool. When he saw Blood Moon Commandery Princess return, he hurried to greet her and asked with concern, "Commandery Princess, how are you? Are you hurt?" Blood Moon Commandery Princess walked to the front of the high priest. A small black needle flew out of her right hand's fingertip. It was the smoky umbrella. She returned the smoky umbrella to the high priest and said with a smile, "This operation went smoothly. With the smoky umbrella in my hand, how could Yunyao hurt me?" The high priest put away the smoky umbrella and revealed a gratified smile on his face. "You deliberately left clues in the mine tunnel of Dragon Mountain and lured Yunyao to the cliff. Since the operation went smoothly, they should have found that tunnel and the ancient tomb by now, right? He, they will definitely report to the Sky Pillar sect as soon as they discover the ancient tomb. At that time, the Sky Pillar sect will understand why the Tianjian sect is unwilling to give up Dragon Mountain. They will certainly send a large number of experts to explore the ancient tomb and find a way to crack the ancient tomb's protective array." The Blood Moon Infanta also sneered complacently and praised sincerely, "The high priest is brilliant enough to design such a perfect plan. The ancient tomb's protective array is a heavenly origin grade array. Neither the Tianjian sect nor us can break the array. Only the Sky Pillar sect has the strength to do so. When the time comes, the experts of the Sky Pillar sect will have gone to break the ancient tomb's formation. The Sky Pillar sect will definitely be empty of power and weak in defense. We can take the opportunity to sneak into the Sky-bearing sect and rescue His Majesty the Demon Emperor. Moreover, after the people from the Sky Pillar sect break the ancient tomb's formation, we'll catch them off guard and take away the treasures in the ancient tomb." He. This is really a brilliant plan to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Next, we can just sit back and reap the benefits. The high priest smiled reservedly and said modestly, "Although my plan is brilliant, it is also due to the Infanta's contribution. If the Infanta didn't go to the Tianjian sect personally and capture Ran Donglai, how could I find out the secret of Dragon Mountain and know about the 1,000-year-old ancient tomb?" The Blood Moon Infanta nodded with a smile and said, "Since that's the case, after our plan succeeds and we rescue His Majesty the Demon Emperor, we will be the greatest contributors." Ha. The High Priest and the Infanta looked at each other and revealed an expectant smile. Dragon Mountain, deep underground. Ji Tianqing Yunyao passed through the dark and ancient passage and stood on a square paved with black stone slabs. This square, which had a radius of 100 meters, was ancient and decayed. The ground was filled with gullies and cracks. However, the 2 of them didn't care. Their eyes were fixed on the scene in front of them, and their faces were full of surprise. Behind the square, there was a colorful light shield that had a radius of 1,000 meters. The light shield was like a giant bowl that was upside down on the ground. It shone with a dazzling five-colored brilliance and emitted a majestic aura of true core strength. The five-colored brilliance represented the true core strength of the five elements. Ji Tianqing couldn't help but exclaim, "This is a grand array, a divine array." Yun Yao was also surprised. She nodded and said, "It's really incredible. Our sect has controlled Dragon Mountain for so many years, but we didn't realize that there was a divine array deep underground. Eldest senior sister, the divine array wouldn't appear here for no reason. Let's go and take a look." After saying that, Ji Tianqing pulled Yun Yao and walked toward the grand array. The two of them walked across the dilapidated square and stopped in front of the divine array. Previously, the two of them were too far away to see what was inside the five-colored light shield. At this moment, the two of them were observing from a close distance. Through the translucent divine array, they saw an ancient building in the middle of the grand array. Black boulders that were 5 meters long and weighed tens of thousands of kilograms paved a solemn path. At the end of the path, there were steps made of the same black rocks. After 18 steps, there was a high platform that was almost 100 meters wide. On top of the platform stood a gigantic stone tablet that was 1,000 meters tall, towering between heaven and earth. Even though they were hundreds of meters away and separated by a layer of the divine array, the two of them could still feel the desolate and solemn aura that the giant stone tablet was emitting. There were a few large words carved on the black stone tablet. The words were ancient, and the strokes were vigorous and powerful. They revealed a sharp sword intent that soared into the sky. Ji Tianqing stared at the giant black stone tablet. A hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. He did not know why, but when he saw the giant stone tablet, he could not help but think of the sword tablet in Kenshin's tomb. The ancient words on the stone tablet emitted a soaring sword intent that gave him an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Ji Tianqing's heart skipped a beat. A thought flashed across his mind. Could this stone tablet be related to Kenshin's tomb in some way? Although he felt that this idea was a little absurd, it was almost impossible to link Kenshin's tomb and the stone tablet that appeared under Dragon Mountain. But for some reason, after this idea appeared, it lingered in his mind, and he could not get rid of it. At this moment, Yun Yao, who was next to him, whispered, "Junior brother Tianqing, this building in the divine array is an ancient tomb." Ji Tianqing looked over and saw that behind the 1,000-meter-tall stone tablet, there was indeed a tomb that was as large as a palace. The tomb was in the shape of a semicircle. It was made of huge black rocks that weighed thousands of kilograms. The surface of the huge rocks was mottled and filled with marks that were etched by time. He could vaguely estimate that this solemn and dignified ancient tomb had existed for at least 1,000 years. Without a doubt, this was a 1,000-year-old ancient tomb that was protected by the divine array. The person buried in the ancient tomb was definitely not a nobody. Chapter 211. Ji Tianqing and Yun Yao were both amazed as they looked at the 1,000-year-old tomb in the Tianyuan Formation. After a long time, the two of them saw the layout of the tomb clearly and began to discuss in a low voice. Ji Tianqing sneered and said, "No wonder the Tianjian sect was so determined to get Dragon Mountain. In order to win the competition, they didn't hesitate to cheat. At first, I was wondering why the Tianjian sect was still unwilling to give up Dragon Mountain when it had been destroyed to this extent. Now it seems that they had discovered the tomb hidden underground long ago. That's why they wanted to continue to occupy Dragon Mountain." Yun Yao nodded in agreement and said in a cold voice, "Our sect controlled Dragon Mountain for decades. We took care of Dragon Mountain like a paradise. We didn't excavate the underground mineral veins. That's why we didn't discover this underground tomb. However, after the Tianjian sect occupied Dragon Mountain, they excavated the mineral veins crazily. That's how they discovered this tomb by accident. Fortunately, This tomb is protected by the Tianyuan formation. The Tianjian sect shouldn't have the ability to break the formation. Otherwise, they would have broken into the tomb long ago. Ji Tianqing said with a serious face, "Senior sister, the layout of this tomb is huge and magnificent. It has been protected by the Tianyuan formation for thousands of years. The person buried in the tomb must be a martial arts expert. Even the Tianjian sect couldn't break the Tianyuan formation. You and I have no chance of breaking the formation. In that case, we'd better leave here as soon as possible and return to report to the sect leader." Yunyao nodded slightly and said, "I have the same idea. Only a Tianyuan expert can break this kind of Tianyuan formation. Let's return to the sect immediately. As for how to deal with this tomb, the sect leader will decide." After the two of them made up their minds, they turned and left the tomb. They crossed the broken square and entered the ancient passage. After passing through the long and dark passage, the two of them returned to the open space below the cliff. Yunyao took out the hairpin from her hair bun again and poured her true essence into it, turning the hairpin into a pair of wind and fire wings. There was no need for her to reach out to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing had already consciously hugged her arm, waiting for her to take off. Yunyao's expression didn't change. She didn't seem to have any thoughts about it. However, when Ji Tianqing stole a few glances at her, he discovered that her crystal-clear, jade-like earlobes were actually dyed with a layer of red. Yunyao, such an otherworldly fairy, actually knows how to be shy. A strange feeling welled up in Ji Tianqing's heart. He was inexplicably happy. However, when normal girls are shy, their cheeks will turn red. Her face is normal, but her earlobes will turn red. Interesting. Just as he was secretly muttering in his heart, Yunyao had already flapped her wind and fire wings, flying him up the cliff. After a few short breaths, the two of them flew to the top of the cliff and landed on the open space. Ji Tianqing hadn't carefully experienced the softness of Yunyao's body yet. He could only silently let go of her arm and reluctantly withdraw his hands. "Let's go," Yunyao said with a calm expression. Ji Tianqing nodded and hurriedly followed her footsteps. They walked side by side into the dark mine tunnel. An hour later, the two of them walked out of the complex and winding mine tunnel and returned to the mountainside. Chu Huaishan had already investigated several mining sites and was waiting for them at the entrance of the cave. After the three of them met, Chu Huaishan asked, "Yunyao, Tianqing, did you find anything?" Yunyao nodded and said in a low voice, "Elder Chu, we found a secret deep underground. However, this matter shouldn't be publicized for the time being. Let's return to the sect first." Chu Huaishan saw her serious expression and understood that this secret was extremely important. He was also shaken and hurriedly nodded, "All right, let's not delay. Let's return to the sect immediately." Then, the three of them returned to the dragon-gazing platform at the top of the mountain. Riding the spirit birds and red-crowned cranes, they rushed back to the Sky Pillar sect as fast as lightning. When the three of them rushed back to the Sky Pillar sect, it was already time to light the lanterns. Several of the mountain peaks in the sect were lit with lanterns. Chu Huaishan and Yunyao went to the Sky Pillar Hall to report the news to Sect Master Chu Tianqing. Ji Tianqing returned to the storm courtyard. Ever since he saw the ancient tomb under the Dragon Mountain with his own eyes, he had been puzzled. He frowned and pondered for a while. He couldn't help but want to enter the Kenshin tomb and ask the sword soul of the burial of heaven about this matter. Whoosh! When his consciousness focused on the black hole in his dantian, it passed through the black hole and entered the Kenshin tomb. It was still the same dark and cold space. His consciousness condensed into a translucent human figure and flew over the wasteland. A moment later, he flew to the indomitable sword steel and stopped. He looked up at the four big words on the sword steel and found that the strokes, momentum, and sharp sword intent of these words were very similar to the words on the stone steel in the ancient tomb. This also confirmed his conjecture that the 1,000-year-old ancient tomb was related to the Kenshin tomb. Senior Burial of Heaven, sorry to disturb you. I have something to ask you. Ji Tianqing cupped his hands toward the huge sword steel and called out loudly. A moment later, the voice of the sword soul of the Burial of Heaven came from the black sword steel. Kid, did you encounter a problem in your cultivation? The voice of the Burial of Heaven was as ancient and desolate as ever. Ji Tianqing quickly shook his head and explained, Senior Burial of Heaven, I don't want to ask you about a cultivation problem. Today, I found a 1,000-year-old ancient tomb at the bottom of Dragon Mountain, 300 miles away from the Sky Pillar sect. He explained the matter in a simple and clear manner, including the layout of the 1,000-year-old ancient tomb and the appearance of the huge stone stele. I saw that the words, strokes, and momentum of the sword intent on the stone stele are very similar to the words on this sword stele. Senior Burial of Heaven, is there any connection between that 1,000-year-old ancient tomb and the Kenshin tomb? After listening to his story, the sword soul of the Burial of Heaven pondered for a moment before answering, perhaps there is some connection, but this is a small matter from 1,000 years ago. I can't remember it clearly. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and continued to ask, Senior Burial of Heaven, that 1,000-year-old ancient tomb is protected by the Heaven Origin Formation. From the layout and momentum of the ancient tomb, the person buried in it must have an extraordinary identity. It is very likely that he was a Heaven Origin expert. Don't tell me you can't remember anything at all. The sword soul of the Burial of Heaven chuckled and said in a low voice, Kid, there seem to be several Heaven Origin experts in the Star Ancient Realm 1,000 years ago. How do I know who is in that ancient tomb? Moreover, a Heaven Origin expert may be an unattainable expert to you, but to me and Kenshin, he is just a weak ant. After a pause, he continued, however, the Heaven Origin Formation you mentioned is a little familiar, like déjà vu. Tell me more about the Tianyuan Grand Formation in detail. What is it like? 6th update, please recommend tickets and tips. In addition, thanks to the 10,000 book coins from First Love Monster Axezy. I will add another chapter for this brother tomorrow. There will be a total of 7 chapters. Chapter 212. Ji Tianqing told the Sword Soul Burial of Heaven all the details of the Tianyuan Great Array. After the Sword Soul Burial of Heaven listened, it pondered for a moment, then said in a low voice, Boy, I still have to think about this Great Array. After that, it didn't make a sound. Ji Tianqing didn't know if it was asleep or lost in thought. He waited for a quarter of an hour, but the Sword Soul Burial of Heaven didn't say anything, so he had to leave the Kenshin tomb for the time being. After his consciousness returned to his body, he entered the secret room and began to cultivate. Before, he had obtained a large number of elixirs, spirit fruits, and other resources, which could help him quickly refine his acupoints. The night passed quickly. Early the next morning, Ji Tianqing left the Wind Cloud courtyard and rushed to the White Cloud Hall to find Yunyao. When he saw Yunyao was sitting cross-legged on the highest stone platform on the roof of the White Cloud Hall. The stone platform was a piece of 1,000-year-old jade, which could help warriors cultivate, gather the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and make people's minds clear. It was a priceless treasure. Yunyao, who was wearing a white dress, was sitting upright on the jade platform, meditating with her eyes closed. She was bathing in the early morning clouds on the mountain peak, facing the rising sun in the east, looking like a fairy who had descended from the 9th heaven. Ji Tianqing jumped from the corridor on the 3rd floor of the palace to the roof and stood a few steps behind Yunyao. Yunyao didn't need to look back to know that he had come, so she stopped cultivating and asked with a calm expression, Junior brother Tianqing, why did you come to find me? Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and said with a smile, Senior sister, sorry to disturb you. I came to find you because I want to ask you about that ancient tomb. Yunyao was still sitting on the jade platform, with her back facing him, facing the sea of clouds and the rising sun in the east. She replied, Last night I already reported the news to Zhang Menshizuan. Master sent 5 elders to Dragon Mountain overnight to investigate the Tianyuan array and the ancient tomb. The elders are stationed at Dragon Mountain, studying that great formation day and night. I believe that there will be a result soon. There is no need for us to worry about this matter. Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "That's good." With several elders guarding Dragon Mountain, even if the Heavenly Sword sect has any schemes, it will be difficult for them to execute them. However, eldest senior sister, I thought about it for a long time last night, and I keep feeling that this matter is a little strange. I carefully recalled the process of us discovering the ancient tomb yesterday. I feel that the appearance of the demons is very strange. It seems that they deliberately led us to the edge of the cliff and led us to discover the ancient tomb. Yin Yao nodded slightly and agreed. Yes, I've also thought about this problem. However, I didn't detect the aura left behind by the demons at the bottom of the cliff and near the ancient tomb. Therefore, the demons didn't go down to the bottom of the cliff, and they shouldn't have discovered the ancient tomb. As for why the demons kidnapped the odd job disciple and the 2 deacons, and why they ambushed us, sect leader has sent people to investigate this matter thoroughly. Perhaps the truth will be revealed soon. After Ji Tianqing heard this, he smiled and nodded. That's good. Then I won't disturb eldest senior sister's cultivation. After that, he cupped his hands to Yun Yao and was about to turn and leave. Before he left, he didn't forget to add, of course, if there is any news about the ancient tomb on Dragon Mountain, I hope that eldest senior sister can let me know. Definitely. Yun Yao nodded and agreed. Ji Tianqing was relieved and left White Cloud Hall. In the Tianjian sect. The main peak of the sect was called the Divine Sword Peak. On the peak of the mountain, there was a magnificent palace called the Divine Sword Palace. This was the residence of the Tianjian sect leader, and it was also the place where the elders of the sect usually discussed matters. According to the rules of the Tianjian sect, on the 5th day of every month, the sect leader would gather all the elders to discuss matters in the Divine Sword Palace. Coincidentally, today was the day of the meeting. All the elders of the various halls had already entered the Divine Sword Palace and were waiting patiently. 9 elders in purple robes stood in 2 rows on both sides of the main hall. Everyone was whispering to each other, and their faces were dignified and indignant. Not long after, a middle-aged man in a blue robe, who was as thin as a bamboo pole and had a sharp aura, walked into the main hall. Although this person didn't look impressive, he had the aura of a Heaven Origin stage expert, and his whole body exuded a sharp and domineering aura. When the 9 elders saw this person, they immediately stopped talking and bowed. Greetings, sect leader. There was no doubt that this person was the sect leader of the Tianjian sect, one of the top 3 experts in the ancient star realm. Behind the sect leader of the Tianjian sect was an old man in a yellow robe with white eyebrows and a goatee. Although this person had dark skin, a short stature, and a big belly, he pretended to have the demeanor of an immortal. The 9 elders had different opinions about this person, but on the surface, they didn't dare to show any disrespect. They all cupped their hands and bowed. Greetings, guest Huangfu. This person's surname was Huangfu, and his real name was unknown. He was temporarily the guest elder of the Tianjian sect. Although his position was the same as the 9 elders, he was deeply trusted and relied on by the Tianjian sect leader. His position in the Tianjian sect was extremely high, second only to the sect leader. The sect leader of the Tianjian sect walked to the main seat and sat down. Guest Huangfu stood beside him. Elders, in today's meeting, I would like to discuss an important matter with all of you. The sect leader of the Tianjian sect looked at everyone with a serious expression and said in a dignified and low voice, I believe everyone has already heard the news. Yesterday, people from the Sky Pillar sect discovered the ancient tomb under Dragon Mountain. Of course, this would happen sooner or later. From the day our sect lost the Dragon Mountain tournament and returned Dragon Mountain to the Sky Pillar sect, it was destined that the Sky Pillar sect would discover the ancient tomb. When the defeat of the Dragon Mountain tournament was mentioned, Elder Master Tang of the Outer sect revealed an ashamed and uneasy expression. Fortunately, the sect leader of the Tianjian sect didn't dwell on it. He continued, the Sky Pillar sect has occupied Dragon Mountain for so many years, but they still haven't discovered the ancient tomb deep underground. Our sect has occupied Dragon Mountain for only 3 years, but we found the ancient tomb underground. What does this mean? Our sect is destined to be a great sect protected by martial arts fate. That 1,000-year-old ancient tomb should belong to our sect. Hearing this, the elders all nodded in agreement. The sect leader of the Tianjian sect continued, the people from the Sky Pillar sect are already investigating the ancient tomb. Our sect can't start a war with them. Moreover, guest elder Huangfu and I have been working hard for several months, but we still haven't been able to crack the ancient tomb's formation. Perhaps only the people from the Sky Pillar sect can break that formation. Since that's the case, I'll send 3 elders to secretly keep an eye on the ancient tomb's movements. Once the Sky Pillar sect cracks the ancient tomb's formation, our sect will take the opportunity to take action and seize the ancient tomb. After saying this, the sect leader of the Tianjian sect named 3 elders and told them to go to Dragon Mountain after the meeting to secretly keep an eye on the ancient tomb. The Discipline Hall elder frowned and thought for a moment before asking, Sect leader, that ancient tomb is located deep under Dragon Mountain. It's very hidden. The Sky Pillar sect has only taken over Dragon Mountain for a few days. How could they have discovered the ancient tomb so quickly? Isn't there something fishy about this? The sect leader of the Tianjian sect nodded slightly and said with a grave expression, it's indeed fishy. I suspect that someone in our sect leaked the information about the ancient tomb. Hearing this, the elders' expressions changed and they began to discuss in low voices. Traitors were taboo in all the great sections. Once discovered, they were basically sentenced to death. Outer sect elder Master Tang hesitated for a moment before cupping his hands and reporting to sect leader, outer sect disciple Ran Donglai disappeared for no reason the day after the Dragon Mountain tournament ended. This person is one of the 3 disciples who participated in the Dragon Mountain tournament and knows the secret of Dragon Mountain. This subordinate suspects that this person may have leaked the information. Today's Chapter 7 update, please recommend me and give me tips. Thank you brothers for your support. Chapter 213. When the Tianjian sect master heard this, he immediately frowned, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. This disciple was recruited from the Yong'an region. He has only been in the sect for 2 months and doesn't have much loyalty to the sect. How can we let him know the secret of Dragon Mountain? Elder Master Tang, Ran Donglai disappeared on the 2nd day of the large competition. Why did you only report this to me today? Elder Master Tang was enveloped by the Tianjian sect master's fierce aura. He immediately lowered his head in fear and quickly explained. Sect master, please calm down. It's not a big deal for a new outer sect disciple to go missing. Sect master has been busy recently, so this subordinate didn't dare to disturb you. Ever since this subordinate learned that Ran Donglai went missing, I sent people to search and investigate everywhere. There hasn't been any news or results in the past few days. This subordinate can't explain it to you, sect master. The Tianjian sect master frowned and waved his hand impatiently. He shouted in a low voice, forget it. Since it has already happened, it's useless to talk about it. Elder Master Tang, I order you to personally lead people to investigate this matter. You must find Ran Donglai. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. Elder Master Tang quickly bowed and cupped his fists. This subordinate obeys. The Tianjian sect master's anger subsided a little, and he looked at guest elder Huangfu next to him. Guest elder Huangfu, how is your deduction of the Sky Pillar sect's 9-dragon spirit vein diagram? Guest elder Huangfu nodded and calmly cupped his fists. Reporting to sect master, I've already made some progress. However, when Deacon Chi investigated the sky-bearing sect for a few days, the spirit vein layout and terrain he found were somewhat superficial. It was only some superficial information. Based on the clues Deacon Chi found, this subordinate has preliminarily deduced the layout of the 9-dragon spirit vein, but I'm still missing the most crucial details. At this point, he sighed with a face full of regret. Sigh. If there's a chance for this subordinate to enter the sky-bearing sect and personally observe the 9-dragon spirit vein, this subordinate will definitely be able to present a detailed array diagram to the sect master. The Tianjian sect master narrowed his eyes. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as he said in a low voice, "The Sky Pillar sect is on guard against our sect. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to realize your idea, guest Elder Huangfu. However, destroying the Sky Pillar sect's 9-dragon spirit vein is a major matter. I'm not in a hurry. Honorable guest Huangfu, you are a grandmaster of Array Dao. I will have to trouble you with this matter. Please investigate more clues and do your best to complete the 9-dragon spirit vein map. After I destroy the 9-dragon spirit veins and destroy the Sky Pillar sect's 1,000 years of foundation, my sect will be able to stabilize its position as the #1 sect and replace the Sky Pillar sect in controlling the Heavenly Stellar region. At that time, I'll definitely give guest Elder Huangfu the greatest credit." Guest Elder Huangfu smiled and hurriedly cupped his hands in salute. He flattered, it's this subordinate's honor to be able to contribute to the sect master's great ambition. The sect master is so farsighted and farsighted. It won't be long before you destroy the Sky Pillar sect and unify the Heavenly Stellar region. Of course, everyone understood that guest Elder Huangfu was flattering the sect master. However, his flattery hit the Tianjian sect master's heart. It made the Tianjian sect master happy and his anger dissipated. Next, the Tianjian sect master asked about some sect matters before announcing the end of the meeting and letting the elders carry out their orders. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 2 days, Ji Tianqing had been cultivating in seclusion in a secret room. After more than 40 hours of bitter cultivation, with the help of elixirs, he had successfully refined another aperture point. Although this result was not great and could not significantly increase his strength, it still made him feel gratified. In just a few days, I've successfully refined 2 apertures. This speed should be very fast. When I've refined all 8 apertures in the first meridian, I'll be able to advance to the second stage of the profound comprehension realm. After finishing his cultivation, Ji Tianqing walked out of the secret room. He left the room and prepared to make a trip to the Great Peace Palace. However, just as he walked into the courtyard, he ran into Deacon Du Wu. When Du Wu saw him, he seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly waved his hand. "Ji Tianqing. It's good that I ran into you. I have something to give you." A trace of doubt flashed in Ji Tianqing's eyes. He hurriedly walked in front of Du Wu, bowed, and asked, "Deacon Du, what is it?" Du Wu took out a letter from his spatial ring and handed it to him. He explained, "This is a letter sent to you by someone in a mundane kingdom. This letter was delivered to me yesterday. I knew that you were cultivating in seclusion, so I temporarily kept it for you." Ji Tianqing took the letter and thanked Du Wu before returning to his room. A letter from a mundane kingdom? It should be from father, right? He muttered in a low voice. With a trace of anticipation, he opened the sealed envelope. The handwriting on the letter was neat and tidy, with over 1,000 words. He recognized it at a glance. It was his father, Ji Chankong's handwriting. The letter said, "My son Tianqing, after you left, I missed you very much. I was also worried that you wouldn't be able to adapt to the Sky Pillar sect's rules. I know that you are meticulous and steady in your actions. However, the world of martial arts is complicated and people's hearts are unpredictable. You have to be more vigilant. Don't have the heart to harm others, but don't let your guard down. I've already recovered more than half of my injuries. I'm fine for the time being, so you don't have to worry." The Ji family's businesses are also gradually recovering and will be back to normal in half a year. Half a month ago, the Shadow Sword Hall's men caught the fugitive Ji Hao in the Hengchuan kingdom and have already brought him back to the Ji family. I didn't execute him because his father had already been beheaded and he was also a descendant of the Ji family. I imprisoned him in the dungeon for the rest of his life and made him face the wall to reflect on his mistakes. Ji Tianqing sat in front of his desk and carefully read the letter. Knowing that the Ji family's situation had stabilized and that his father's injuries were no longer a problem, he smiled. He continued reading and saw that the letter said, "Not long ago, the news of Ji Ling's death had already reached the imperial city of Azure Cloud. The imperial family and several great clans have already received the news, but the imperial family wasn't angry and didn't have any reaction. I've asked someone to secretly inquire. The emperor's meaning is that Ji Ling's death is an internal matter of the Sky Pillar sect and the imperial family can't interfere. Therefore, you don't have to worry about the imperial family's revenge. After Ji Ling's death, the Ling family lost their backer and has calmed down. They've restrained themselves and no longer attacked our Ji family. However, I can feel that the Ling family is only calm on the surface. I've already investigated and found that the Ling family's patriarch, Ling Sihai, left the imperial city half a month ago and his whereabouts are unknown. Tianqing, although you should be safe in the Sky Pillar sect, I still have to be careful. But as your father, I still hope that you will be more careful and not have any accidents." Chapter 214. The contents of the letter. He put the letter back into the envelope and solemnly kept it in his space ring. Fortunately, the royal family did not use Ji Ling's death to cause trouble for the Ji family. Otherwise, father would be in danger. When he killed Ji Ling, he was worried that the news would spread to the royal family. Would it infuriate the royal family and bring disaster to the Ji family? Now that he knew the royal family's attitude, he was finally relieved. The royal family did not pursue the matter of Ji Ling's death and did not make things difficult for the Ji family. I guess it has something to do with Cuckoo. That silly girl must have told the royal family the whole story and pleaded for mercy for me and the Ji family. Otherwise, the royal family would not forgive me and the Ji family even if they put up a front for the sake of their reputation. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a smile and whispered, "Although Cuckoo did not say anything and pretended that nothing happened, I still owe her a favor." He kept this matter in mind and decided to return Ji Ku's favor when he had the chance in the future. After a moment of contemplation, he walked out of the room and left the Tempest courtyard. He planned to make a trip to the Grand Peace Palace to help Xiang Wuji clean the courtyard and ask about the cultivation of the Crimson Dragon Flash. He had practiced it many times in the past few days and his understanding of the Crimson Dragon Flash had deepened. However, he had a doubt in his heart and could not figure it out even after thinking for a long time. He walked down the Atlas Peak along the forest path and hurried towards the Grand Peace Peak that was 10 miles away. However, when he passed by a pavilion at the foot of the mountain, he saw two figures in the pavilion. Two young girls in long dresses were standing in the pavilion and admiring the scenery behind the mountain. They were chatting softly with smiles on their faces. One of them was wearing a long green dress with neat bangs. It was Xian Xian. The other girl was wearing a long white dress. She was tall and beautiful and her temperament was even more charming. When Ji Tianqing looked at the girl in the white dress, his heart skipped a beat and he could not help but frown. Although the girl in the white dress had a beautiful smile on her face and her white dress fluttered in the wind, it showed her graceful and alluring figure. However, Ji Tianqing always felt that she was a little strange, as if there was an invisible chill on her body. That kind of chill made people instinctively feel disgusted, but it could not be seen or touched, as if it was there or not. Ji Tianqing stopped and couldn't help but look at the girl in the white dress. At this moment, the girl in the white dress seemed to have sensed something and turned her head to look at him. When she saw his appearance clearly, an imperceptible cold light flashed through the girl's eyes. But in the blink of an eye, the girl's expression returned to normal. She turned her head and said something to Xian Xian, the smile on her face still bright and beautiful. Only then did Xian Xian see Ji Tianqing. She smiled and waved her hand, greeting him. Tianqing, why are you here? Ji Tianqing withdrew his gaze from the girl in the white dress and walked towards the pavilion with a smile. He entered the pavilion and stood in front of Xian Xian. He nodded with a smile and said, Junior sister Xian Xian, I was preparing to go to Great Peace Palace. I didn't expect to meet you here. Finished speaking, he turned his head to look at the girl in the white dress. He looked at her closely and asked Xian Xian, Junior sister Xian Xian, this is. Xian Xian revealed a faint smile and pulled the girl in the white dress's hand. She introduced to him, Tianqing, this is Shulan, my good sister. Shulan is an inner court disciple of the Heart Moon sect and also my aunt's eldest disciple. Previously, when Ji Tianqing was reading the history books, Xian Xian had told him about the 8 great sects in the Star Ancient Realm. Heart Moon sect was one of them. The Heart Moon sect was the most special sect among the 8 great sections. This sect only accepted female disciples. Even the guards and odd-job workers in the sect were all female. There was not a single male in the entire sect. The disciples of the Heart Moon sect mainly cultivated the Heart Moon mysterious technique and paid the most attention to cultivating one's character. They rarely participated in fighting and killing battles. Therefore, the female disciples of the Heart Moon sect were all beauties with dignified bearings and elegant temperaments. As for Xian Xian's aunt, Ji Tianqing had also heard her mentioned before. She was an elder of the Heart Moon sect and had an extraordinary status. Thinking up to here, Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and bowed to Shulan. He said with a slight smile, I am Ji Tianqing. Greetings to Miss Shulan. At the same time as he bowed, he also stared at Shulan's eyes, wanting to see if there was any clue. But Shulan's expression was as calm as water. She revealed a gentle faint smile and said with a bow, Shulan greets you. No matter if it was her gaze, actions, or tone, they were all very normal. There was not the slightest bit of abnormality. Ji Tianqing was secretly puzzled in his heart. His expression did not change as he asked Xian Xian, Junior sister Xian Xian, there must be something important for Shulan to look for you, right? Did I take the liberty to disturb you too? It can't be considered a disturbance. Xian Xian lightly shook her head and explained, my body has not been well since I was young. Aunt often asks Sister Shulan to come over and give me some precious medicinal ingredients. Today, Sister Shulan also gave me a golden leaf Ganoderma. I accompanied her to walk around the sect and see the scenery. Oh, I see. Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. Coincidentally, I have been cultivating in seclusion for a long time and only came out today. Since I have nothing to do, I also want to walk around. If junior sister Xian Xian doesn't mind, I wonder if I can accompany you two to walk around. The reason why he made this request was not because he had any improper thoughts. He just wanted to observe Shulan a little more. Xian Xian glanced at Shulan's expression. Seeing that she did not mind, she nodded in agreement. Thus, the 3 of them walked together. They strolled on the forest path and enjoyed the scenery. Xian Xian and Shulan walked side by side in front, chatting as they walked. Both of them were in a good mood. Their faces were full of smiles. Ji Tianqing followed behind them. Occasionally, he would say a few words. Most of the time, he was silently observing Shulan. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. The 3 of them walked around the towering sky peak. It was already noon and the air was a little hot. Xian Xian and Shulan wanted to go back to rest. Ji Tianqing could only wave goodbye to them. After the 2 of them left, Ji Tianqing hurried to the Great Palace. I observed Shulan for 2 hours and did not find any clues or abnormalities. Could it be that I was mistaken? He muttered in his heart. Then, he temporarily put this matter aside. After arriving at the Great Palace, he went straight to the third courtyard. Seeing that Xiang Wuji was refining pills in the pill room, he fetched a basin of water and found a rag to silently clean the room. The little ice fox and the little black dragon had been staying in the 100 treasures brocade pouch for a long time. They had already felt stifled. Ji Tianqing let them out and let them move around the Great Palace as they pleased. After all, they were already very familiar with this place. Unexpectedly, as soon as the little ice fox and the little black dragon left the 100 treasures brocade pouch, they impatiently flew toward the pill room. They wanted to find Xiang Wuji to ask for snacks. In the past few days that they had been with Ji Tianqing, they had not been able to eat spirit pills and spirit fruits. They had been drooling for a long time. Chapter 2:15. The fragrance of medicine permeated the pill room. The violet-robed Xiang Wuji stared at the bronze pill cauldron in front of him. He constantly sent out vast amounts of vital essence to adjust the true fire in the cauldron. After a while, he stopped, and a gratified smile appeared on his face. This cauldron of pills is about to be completed, he muttered to himself. He murmured to himself as he turned around and walked to the corner of the room, lying down comfortably on the rattan chair. Then, he took out an azure wine gourd from his space ring and raised his head to drink. At this time, he caught a glimpse of two small heads at the door from the corner of his eye. They were peeking into the pill room. Seeing this, Xiang Wuji immediately smiled and said exasperatedly, "You two little fellows, you're already here. What are you still hiding for?" Qian Yu and the little black dragon immediately revealed joyful smiles when they heard this. They hurriedly flew into the pill room and came to Xiang Wuji's side. "Senior, we've come to visit you," the little black dragon said seriously as he stared at Xiang Wuji. Qian Yu extended a front claw and bowed. He said with a smile, "Senior, we haven't seen you in so long. We've missed you to death." After saying that, it even squeezed the little black dragon beside it and gave it a look. The little black dragon paused for a moment before reacting. It hurriedly nodded in agreement and said seriously, "Yes, we've missed you to death." Xiang Wuji grinned and gave a teasing smile as he glanced at the two of them. "Huh, don't try this. Do you think this old man doesn't know what you're thinking? Do you miss me, or do you miss my spirit pills and spirit fruits?" The little black dragon said without hesitation, "Both." Qian Yu angrily glared at it and then hurriedly explained to Xiang Wuji with a smile, "Senior, of course we miss you. When we were in the Great Peace Palace, you took great care of us and gave us so many pills and fruits. We've always remembered this and are endlessly grateful to you." While it said this, its eyes had already drifted elsewhere. Seeing the bronze pill furnace in the pill room and smelling the pill fragrance coming from it, it couldn't help but swallow its saliva. Xiang Wuji took a sip of wine from his wine gourd and said slowly, "Since you're so grateful to this old man, why aren't you working for this old man? Little black dragon, go chop wood in the woodshed. You must fill the woodshed before nightfall. Little fox, go and fetch water for this old man. Today, you must fill all 36 vats with water." The little black dragon paused for a moment before turning to Qian Yu with a questioning look in its eyes. Qian Yu's eyes darted around before he quickly smiled and said, "Senior, you must be joking. A heaven origin stage cultivator like you is unfathomably powerful and resourceful. You can burn down mountains with a snap of your fingers and drown 7 armies with a wave of your hand. Why would you need us to carry water and chop firewood? Senior, I see that you're having a hard time refining pills. Why don't I massage your back?" Without waiting for Xiang Wuji to refuse, it waved its little claws and began to massage Xiang Wuji's back with all its strength. Seeing the little black dragon still in a daze in the air, it hurriedly gave the little black dragon a look, indicating for it to massage Xiang Wuji's legs. The little black dragon froze for a moment before reacting. It hurriedly extended a pair of claws that flashed with cold light and swatted at Xiang Wuji's legs. Xiang Wuji immediately frowned and cursed, "You two little bastards. Trying to curry favor for no reason, just what do you want?" The little black dragon hurriedly pulled back its claws in fright and looked dazedly at Xiang Wuji, not knowing what to say. Xian Yu continued to massage his back and said in a pitiful voice, "Senior, you don't know, but ever since we left the Great Palace, we haven't been able to eat enough or wear warm clothes. It's that we haven't been able to eat enough or sleep well. Senior, we really miss you, we really miss our days in the Great Palace." As it spoke, its big clear eyes were covered with a layer of mist. It looked like it was about to cry as it looked sincerely at Xiang Wuji. It looked especially pitiful and sad. Xiang Wuji couldn't help but roll his eyes. "So you're saying that Ji Tianqing, that brat, is abusing you?" Xian Yu hesitated and did not speak, but the little black dragon dazedly nodded. Xiang Wuji glared at the little black dragon and then knocked on Xian Yu's head. He cursed, "You two little bastards, don't play tricks with this old man. Forget it, this old man can't be bothered to argue with you. Look at your pitiful appearances." Before he could finish, Xian Yu's tears turned into laughter. It happily said, "Thank you, Senior. I knew that Senior was the best." At this time, the mist in its eyes had long disappeared. Where was the pitiful appearance? Xiang Wuji speechlessly shook his head. He took out 10 some spirit fruits and pills from his space ring and placed them on the table next to him. "Alright, stop acting. Hurry and eat." The little black dragon and Xian Yu both let out joyful cries and hurriedly flew to the table to eat the spirit fruits and pills. Xiang Wuji couldn't help but smile at their joyful appearances. He picked up the azure calabash and continued to drink. In this period of time, Ji Tianqing didn't have many cultivation resources, so he naturally didn't have any extra spirit pills and spirit fruits for Xian Yu and the little black dragon. The two of them could only absorb the spiritual qi of the world and slowly recover their strength. They had been anxious for a long time. Now that they could eat their fill, these spirit pills and spirit fruits would be enough for them to refine for 10 days to half a month. In less than an hour, Xian Yu and the little black dragon had finished all the spirit pills and spirit fruits on the table. The two of them thanked Xiang Wuji before leaving the pill room in satisfaction. The two of them flew back to Ji Tianqing's side and burrowed into the 100 treasures brocade pouch to sleep, refining the energy of the spirit pills and spirit fruits. After Ji Tianqing finished cleaning the room, he went to the pill room to find Xiang Wuji and ask him about cultivation. With Xiang Wuji's guidance, he finally understood the crux of the problem. Unknowingly, an entire afternoon passed. Only when the sun set did Ji Tianqing leave the Great Palace and return to the storm courtyard. In a certain dazzling palace, in a quiet and secluded courtyard. Xian brought Shulan into the courtyard and smiled. "Shulan, you haven't come to see me in half a year. Since you're here, why don't you stay a few more days?" Shulan smiled and nodded. "Of course. Us two sisters can spend a few more days together." Xian pointed at the secluded courtyard and smiled. "Shulan, you can stay in this courtyard for the next few days. This courtyard is used to entertain guests. Usually, no one lives here. If you stay here, no one will disturb you." Hearing this, Shulan immediately smiled and nodded. "That's great. Little sister Xian is so considerate. Okay, then you should rest early. I'll come find you tomorrow." Xian waved her hand and left the courtyard. Shulan maintained her smile. Only after Xian left did her smile disappear and her expression darkened. Chapter 216. Night was about to fall. The small courtyard was dark and silent. Shulan walked into the room expressionlessly. She didn't light the lamp. After closing the door and windows, she lay down on the bed. She lay on the bed, motionless. Her eyes were tightly shut, and her entire body looked stiff, like a puppet. After a short while, dark red blood light gushed out of her body and emitted a faint smell of blood. Then, a ball of blood-red brilliance drilled out of her forehead. Her eyes were still closed, and her body was motionless as if she had fainted. However, the ball of dark red light circled twice in the air and turned into a light red figure with a swoosh. The figure was a woman with a height of nearly 2 meters. She looked exactly like the Blood Moon Infanta. She floated in front of the bed and looked at Shu Lan with a cold expression. Her eyes were full of disgust. Damn it! My primordial spirit stayed in her body for a whole day. I almost died from suffocation. As she spoke, she twisted her neck and limbs as if she was exercising her body. Humph! Despicable and lowly human. If it weren't for the plan, why would I stay in your body? The human race is so hypocritical and cunning. I had to pretend to be close to them when I was in your body. It really disgusts me. The Blood Moon Infanta's tone was cold. She stared at the unconscious Shu Lan with a face full of disdain and hatred. Apparently, she was very unwilling. After a while, the Blood Moon Infanta's primordial spirit stretched out and felt much more comfortable. Her resentment dissipated. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the window, muttering to herself in a low voice. The High Priest is so resourceful. He let me use a secret technique to possess a human body. In this way, I can easily enter the sky-bearing sect without arousing anyone's suspicion. My primordial spirit is in Shu Lan's body. Even if that bitch Yunyao comes, she can't detect my aura. Fortunately, Xian is innocent enough. She didn't see anything unusual and asked me to stay for a few more days. This is exactly what I want. In the next few days, I have to seize the opportunity to destroy the sealing array and prepare for the rescue of His Majesty. Speaking up to here, she recalled what happened during the day. She couldn't help but frown, her eyes revealing a cold murderous intent. Damn you, Ji Tianqing. That damned bastard seems to have sensed something. He's already suspicious of me and deliberately observed me for a long time. I have to stay away from him for the next few days. Even if my essence soul mystic technique is miraculous and almost impossible to be discovered, I still have to be careful. After all, I'm going to sneak into the Sky Pillar sect alone, so I have to make thorough preparations. When the time comes, I'll be able to work with the High Priest and break the seal in one fell swoop. After the Blood Moon Countess muttered to herself for a while, she made up her mind and confirmed her next plan. Then, she went into Shu Lan's forehead. 5 days passed quickly. During these 5 days, Ji Tianqing had been cultivating in seclusion in the secret chamber. After 5 days of arduous cultivation, he had finally refined his third aperture. His strength had increased a little, and he was not far from the second level of the mystic enlightening realm. During these few days, the Sky Pillar sect had been peaceful, and there was no news. After coming out of seclusion, Ji Tianqing went to the White Cloud Hall to ask Yunyao about the news and progress of the Dragon Mountain ancient tomb. The Sky Pillar sect's elders had already gone to the Dragon Mountain to investigate for 7 or 8 days. He thought that there should be some progress in the matter. However, after asking Yunyao, he learned that there was no progress in the Dragon Mountain ancient tomb. The Grand Heaven Essence formation guarding the ancient tomb was too profound and unfathomable. The Sky Pillar sect's elders had been studying it day and night for 7 or 8 days, but they still couldn't figure it out. They were still confused. The only thing they could be sure of was that the Grand Heaven Essence formation was ingenious and extraordinary. It had existed for thousands of years and was still intact. Ji Tianqing was a little surprised when he heard this, but he was more curious and puzzled. He was becoming more and more interested in the 1,000-year-old ancient tomb. He wanted to see what secrets were hidden in the ancient tomb after the Grand Heaven Essence formation was broken. Unfortunately, his strength was too low and he couldn't help at all. He could only wait patiently for news in the storm courtyard. Xian hadn't come to find him these few days. He guessed that Xian should be accompanying Shulan. When he thought of Shulan's figure and aura, he felt a little uneasy. However, he had never met Shulan before, so he couldn't conclude that there was something wrong with her based on his intuition. After all, Shulan was Xuanxuan's good sister. If he continued to pester and observe her, it would inevitably arouse Xian and Shulan's disgust. As a result, he could only turn a blind eye to this matter and not think too much about it. Late at night, he was cultivating in the secret room. Suddenly, the voice of the sword soul burial of heaven sounded in his mind. "Boy, I have something to say to you." Hearing the voice of the burial of heaven, Ji Tianqing was delighted and quickly ended his cultivation. His consciousness entered Kenshin's tomb and condensed into a translucent human figure. He quickly flew across the wasteland and arrived at the sword stele. He looked up at the towering sword stele and asked loudly, "Burial of heaven, you finally remember?" The voice of the sword soul burial of heaven came out from the huge, pitch-black sword stele. "Yes, the ancient tomb and the heaven origin grand array you mentioned before reminded me of a past event from 1,000 years ago. Back then, Kenshin passed by the ancient star realm and stayed here for a period of time. By chance, he took in a boy with a bad fate. That boy and Kenshin were fated, so Kenshin kept him by his side and gave him pointers for a few days. He also gave him a secret array Dao book. More than 10 years after Kenshin left the ancient star realm, he still heard about that boy. At that time, that boy had already become one of the top heaven origin experts in the ancient star realm. He was also a great grandmaster who was proficient in array Dao. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but feel excited and happy. If that's the case, the 1,000-year-old ancient tomb deep under the Dragon Mountain might have something to do with that boy. Was he the one who set up the heaven origin grand array? Or is he one of the experts buried in the 1,000-year-old tomb? The sword soul burial of heaven pondered for a moment before saying in a low voice, "No, what I just said is a past event from 1,000 years ago. It has something to do with the ancient star realm. I can't be sure if that past event has anything to do with the ancient tomb under the Dragon Mountain. Boy, if you want to confirm this, you'll have to go to the Dragon Mountain again. I'll have to personally observe the heaven origin grand array and the ancient tomb before I can confirm if they are related." Ji Tianqing agreed to its request without any hesitation. "Okay, then I'll go to the Dragon Mountain tomb tomorrow morning and let you see the grand array for yourself." Today is the 5th chapter. There are 2 more chapters at 18 and 20 tonight. Please continue to ask for recommendation tickets and tips. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.